when they smelled something strange.
So
But
Dad
Dad
smelled
walked in.
marijuana somewhere, and we're like shocked.
Yeah.
And so Doug goes, "Do you smell it?"
Without any way to confirm that the smell was indeed weed, Cookie Stevens called her husband, Sheriff Stevens, who called in local ceramics teacher Dutch Gibbs, who lived in Seattle for a few months in the 70s.
Yeah, that's weed.
Sheriff Stevens has begun compiling a list of potential suspects, including that boy Lance, who has girl hair and hangs out down by the quarry, Greg Fromke, who was spotted this evening really going to town on some potato skins at Steaky Jake's Steakhouse, and Mr. Thompson. Luckily, one young reading enthusiast seemed unperturbed by the illicit smell.
Yeah, I don't smell anything. I really, really, really love the library.
The weed smell comes on the heels of last month's discovery of a gigantic pair of women's underpants in the children's fiction section. According to Stevens, that case remains open as well.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
So close to the pin of shame.
Yeah, he narrowly avoids the pin of shame.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Did you just wake up? You look not refreshed.
Looks like he bummed a ride here.
Like you just crawled out of bed. You got a little bed head going on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All
Yeah.
right. Well, get your coffee on, and it's time for the show.
Is it?
It is Free Talk Live. Yes, it is. The telephone number, if you'd like to join us tonight, is 603-283-6160. In the studio tonight, it is myself, the Reverend Captain Kickass. Joining me tonight,
Pigless Mountaineer. And Richie Rich.
we're going to kick tonight's show off by saying, crappy birthday, 110 years of the Federal Reserve.
Boo!
I know. Like if the Federal Reserve was given a cake with a bunch of candles, I hope it burns the place down.
Well, I'd just like to soothe my soul with the knowledge that Henry Kissinger no longer walks the earth.
Well, and FDR too, right?
Wasn't
it during his time when this whole thing went into play? Not
It's
that
like 100. And 10 years.
not that I like. I mean, I'm 51, so you do
Wait,
the math.
you mean they would pass that law on like Christmas Eve when no one was even there?
There are
Well played.
There are libertarian types, if you will, and I say types because voluntarists, anarchists, or whatever. I'm not just talking about like Free State Project people or whatever, right? Or people capital L, little L, whatever.
Big
it is,
umbrella
right?
libertarians.
Big umbrella, huge umbrella libertarian types who talk about dead presidents like they're still here somehow. Well, it was so and so's fault. It's like, well, okay, yes, it was, but like, were you alive for that to happen? Like, they have these opinions that like drag into this territory of that make you like they insinuate or imply that they were alive, and I'm like, dude, you're younger than me. There's no way you were alive for this particular regime to have taken place. But at any rate,
I mean, you can still point the blame, right?
okay,
Like if
but
it's
like,
their fault, it's their fault.
but it's like almost the it's almost
It's
like
your fault that their policies are still being paid for.
it would be like the captain speaking in third person. Well, the captain is going to read something now, right? But no, that's me. I'm going to be like, I'm going to read something. I'm not going to say the captain's going to read something now, right? They speak as if they were there. They're like, well, what happened is blah, 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 blah. And then because, and they speak as if they were like they're giving an eyewitness account of the details that happened instead of giving the historical facts, or at least as history has written them.
Okay. I mean,
Well, I said it before, I'll say it again. If you get a time travel device, don't go for Hitler, go for Woodrow Wilson. No Woodrow Wilson, no Federal Reserve, also no World War I, no World War II.
Today, December 23rd, 2023, marks 110 years since the establishment of the Federal Reserve System. It stands as a testament to centralized financial control, perpetuating an intricate web of fallacies that plague the global economic landscape. A creation shrouded in secrecy and conceived on Jekyll Island That's right, folks. If you're not familiar with Jekyll Island,
The Creature from Jekyll Island.
it's a great book, The Creature from Jekyll Island. Check it out. Recommended reading for anybody of almost any age. As long as, I don't even know, like, if it's published in different languages, I assume.
But that book is a conspiracy theory.
Yeah, and the conspiracy theorists are what, like 25 and 0 over the last, 25 years? Right?
So we are running out of conspiracy theories that haven't come true at this point.
The Federal Reserve embodies a sinister creature that inflicts severe harm on the fabric of economic stability. Its inception heralded an era of fiat money. If you don't know what that is, look it up. It basically means fake or backed by nothing.
By decree.
Thank you. Fractional reserve banking. Again, if you don't know what that is, look it up. What it means in layman's terms is banks, if they wanted to give you a loan for $100,000, needed to have some percentage of that in reserve before they could make the loan. 10% is where it was whenever I discovered what fractional reserve banking was.
And then they waived that a few years
They waived that, and so now every loan banks give out is just backed by nothing. It's not even a percentage-based thing. It's just like, yeah, sure, we'll just create money out of thin air for you, provided you have good credit and some collateral and a down payment.
So, as bad of an idea as this is, you mentioned the libertarian types, and 2 or 3 months ago at one of the monthly meetup groups in the city closer to me, there was a gentleman who purported to be like one of us, handing out pamphlets about how the best way for New Hampshire to secede is to start our own paper fiat currency.
Oh gosh, no. I'm sorry. I say that because I think that's a horrible idea. We saw what happened to the Liberty Dollar, right? Bernard von Nothaus.
Well, that's completely different. That was not a paper currency.
I understand, but
okay.
And I can pick up a little bit of what he's laying down there. That, like,
Did you talk to this guy?
No.
Okay,
But
right.
I can imagine an argument that makes some sense to that in as much as, like, okay, if you're still using the US dollar, you're still supporting the federal government.
Yep.
If you're supporting the federal government, you're not really working toward any kind of secession, so on and so forth. Fair enough. But replacing that with a more local form of theft is still a bad idea.
Yeah.
And I think that Argentina is a perfect example of this. So, like, yeah, they are a way, way smaller country. They don't run the world's reserve currency. But still, look at what happens, the kind of waste, fraud, and abuse that infinite power to print money does to people, enough to do 100% plus in inflation every year.
like before government, United States government monopolized currency, right? Which is what they have done. Right? They're the only ones that can make it. We're the only ones that are authorized. You can't make it, right? Before that happened, there were a variety of, we'll call them local currencies, town, cities, right? Communities often would have some form of their own local. Oh, you're in, Dirtwater right now, and well, we have Dirtwater dollars or whatever it is, right? Dirtwater, currency. And yeah, you exchange this for that, and and so, like, in my mind, that's how currency should have, like, sort of developed. Is like there's multiple places that have multiple different types of currency, and whoever has the best one or the most innovative one or the most transferable one or the most exchangeable one or whatever, would have become sort of we'll call it the dominant currency. But that also would not have stopped other currencies from being invented and trying to improve and be better than whatever the dominant currency
and the
is.
way we used to do it in this country was like the best version of that, where instead of it being, the municipality of Dirtwater has a currency, it was this bank issues its bank notes. And because this bank has so far been redeeming its bank notes in actual money, gold,
silver, right, etc.
Since they've been redeeming them, those notes are still trading at face value. This one, they're not redeeming theirs. Their notes aren't trading that way.
To play devil's advocate, then, the reason the Federal Reserve was proposed was because this local bank, Dirtwater currency, failed miserably in so many places.
We'll get to that.
You will always have a percentage of people who take advantage of trust.
Okay.
And the point of that is to not centralize all trust into one entity taking advantage of everyone.
Understood.
And this article that I'm reading, it's actually a post from ANCAP Air on the twit. But what I would say, because of where we're at currently, particularly in New Hampshire with the Free State Project and Liberty Movers, people who value liberty, want to see it in our lifetime, people who support the secession movement, NH exit, all that kind of stuff. What I would say to this guy who attended this meeting is I understand where somebody might find value in the desire to create a locally based currency, whether it's New Hampshire or some city or whatever it is. I get that is a desire that somebody of a libertarian mind might have. That being said, I think a superior product already exists in the Goldback.
Okay.
And so while I might agree that, in order for New Hampshire to secede, it needs to establish an alternative currency to the United States dollar, I think it already has that in the Goldback and in various forms of cryptocurrency.
The Goldback needs a complementary currency for smaller values.
Oh, for change?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
one
just
Goldback,
you wait.
one Goldback's like $4, right? So if I want to buy a banana, I can't do anything with a Goldback.
But you can buy like
You can buy
8
4
bananas.
Yeah.
Yes, but that will rot, right? I want a banana
No,
on
you
my way
just
to work.
eat the one banana, take the rest home, and make banana bread.
No, that's extra work. I want a banana.
But it's good nutrition.
Right? When I'm at the grocery counter and I see that rack of candy bars, I want one one Snicker
Richie
bar.
Rich,
Well-
how many times have you walked into a grocery store and bought one thing?
If it's one thing, I get pick up at the window.
Yeah.
Well, okay, a
Yeah.
grocery store, fair enough, but a corner store, you feel like a snack. You go to the corner,
No,
you want to grab
there is a
thing
need.
of
There's a
chips or
need.
whatever.
Currently, the places that I have been to that accept Goldbacks, when there is a need to that was $3.10, and here's a Goldback. That's right. They give me 90 cents in USD.
Right.
Right.
So it
Well,
needs a
there's also the
complementary currency.
possibility of giving you one of the old dimes that's still made out of silver.
I have some of those.
Right.
Somebody actually used those as currency at the Fork Fest and Pork Fest this past year when I was, selling some stuff. And I was like, yes, I will take. They're like, will you take? I'm like, hell yes, I will.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did. I ended up with like a Joe Montana silver round as well. But when he was with the Kansas City Chiefs, not the 49ers. So, it's extra rare because, they only made so many of those. We'll get back to all of this.
And so silver could be it. Copper could be it for even smaller denominations.
If you need something that small, yeah. Well, that's why pennies existed in the first place,
Right.
is because, and they were the longest running actually made out of something, but not anymore. Now
But
there's
even the Liberty Dollar, as Captain mentioned, had the $1 copper rounds.
Yeah.
Right.
And to that extent, Goldback, the organization, has taken note of the need. They're like, oh, yeah, we made this thing for small purchases so you could buy, a coffee at Starbucks, right? I call Starbucks $4 because you can't get out of there without spending less than $4. You always got to spend more. Anyway, they're aware that, there is some, change, especially as the value of the Goldback goes up in comparison to the dollar. They've tossed around the ideas of, making a perforated Goldback so that you could tear off, some,
All right.
25% or, 5%. I don't know what it is, right? So,
Well, that's the old silver round.
Those
pieces of 8 was an ounce of silver cut into 8 pieces.
I'm not going to worry about it because the people who are manufacturing this product, this Goldback, already know that it's a problem, and hopefully they will innovate, particularly as competition comes to. Comes to them.
But it's difficult to say right now that's the perfect alternative to what we've got.
I mentioned NH exits earlier. Let's go to your calls and thoughts.
the perfect alternative is still in the cryptocurrencies.
We have David Ridley calling. David, you're on Free Talk Live.
I was going to talk off topic, but actually I know of something going on that is on topic here in New Hampshire. Can you hear me?
I can,
hear
yes.
you.
Go ahead.
Okay. So I was just listening to a podcast. I'm a little vague on the timing and the date and everything, but apparently New Hampshire liberty activist and former Senator Jim Forsyth is involved in an effort to try and get New Hampshire currency. It would be gold backed. It would become legal tender, and there would be a crypto version of it, like a token, a crypto token that is backed by gold, and you could use gold as legal tender.
Nice.
Yeah, I think that would be the way to go.
I'm not sure that legal tender is quite the right word for it. I think that implies that people are required to accept it. I think it would just make it so the government can accept it as payment for taxes. I'm not sure it would make anybody accept it.
Right. So I think that's a misnomer with legal tender to begin with, because legal tender is for debts, right? If you incur a debt to someone and they take you to court and they say like, well, we need to settle this debt, you can use legal tender. But if you walk into like the grocery store or the corner store and they say, we only take gold for trade, right? You're not in debt yet, right? You're trying to trade. If you steal something and run out the door and then you get caught and like now you're in debt,
yeah,
and now you can pay that back in U.S. dollars, so it might, incentivize theft. But the legal tender is for payments of, taxes and debts. Doesn't matter. You can barter for whatever you want.
I was going to ask you to clarify that too, because taxation to me is a very different animal than debt.
Understood.
Right? Debt is, I borrowed something for somebody or I owe them restitution for something. Yeah. To me, that's debt.
I understand.
Taxation, however, being theft, I don't actually owe anybody anything.
Right. You can make that distinction. And didn't Jared J, they had the Bitcoin store on Portsmouth?
They did, yeah.
That in order to buy anything from, then you first had to convert to Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Right. It's not like I'm buying this and I'm going to pay in Federal Reserve notes because you must take it because it's legal tender. Right. No, that's what they're accepting because you're not in debt to them yet.
I never made it to that store when it was open. And in fact, I don't even know if it was open when I first got here.
Okay.
But I wanted to go. Like I heard about it. I'm like, this is great. And they had all of the things that you needed, right? They had, some sort of an ATM where you could convert your fiat into crypto.
That you had to if you only had fiat on you.
Right. Or you could, like still to this day, Coinstar machines. If you have your spare change, right? And maybe that's a solution to the, when you get change from Goldbacks or something, you just take it to the Coinstar, convert it into crypto.
Okay. Right? That's an extra step, but
it is. But from a practical perspective in the now, Coinstar still will allow you to, when you bring your coins, dump it in the machine, it counts them all. It takes, 5-10%, whatever it is off the top. But then whatever it's going to give you back, you can choose to have it in a voucher for the store that you're at, or you can choose to have it converted into, I don't even know if they have multiple cryptos. I haven't used it in so long because, I no longer keep spare change around except for like in my ashtray. I've got, some change in case I need to plug a meter or something.
Another example that just came to mind, Captain, you at Fork Fest this past year in Pork Fash.
Yeah.
Right. You were not taking Federal Reserve notes for your merchandise.
Correct. I was not.
Yeah. So, and no one said like, you must take this because this is legal tender.
Yeah.
Right. Nor would they be.
No one even stole your merchandise and then forced you to take their dirty fetties after you took them to court.
Part of my reasoning for not accepting fiat at Forkfest and Porkfest was because you're at Forkfest and Porkfest. If you don't have a method, if you don't have upon you, if all you have on you is USD, walk around for 5 minutes or just go to random people, go, hey, could somebody exchange some USD for, and somebody else will, they'll give you gold back, they'll give you crypto, whatever it is, they'll make you an offer, you'll make them an offer, whatever it is, go, that's the experience that I wanted these people to have.
Yeah, they'll generally even do it at spot.
Right.
It's merchant's choice, and most merchants just choose Federal Reserve notes.
Yeah. Anyway, go ahead, David.
Yeah, and mostly that just comes down to trying to make the maximum number of sales, whereas you have something else in mind.
David?
Yes. So anyway, New Hampshire bill that would create a New Hampshire gold-backed currency. If I'm not getting my timing wrong, then I guess it would be heard between January and March. However, I don't know what the date of this podcast was, so this could be something from last year for all I know.
Okay. Do you remember the name of it, what it was called?
No, I didn't get the bill number or name.
Oh, very informative.
Sorry.
No, it's all right.
I think I'm pretty sure I'm pretty
This was
sure I'm
different
earning
from the
my pay.
topic he called about, Captain.
Yeah, I know.
Slack.
I'm giving him crap. Nothing but love, Dave. What else? Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say I'm pretty sure I'm earning my pay here, but the thing I was going to call about was the treaty on the prohibition of nuclear weapons. Are you familiar with that?
No.
So nuclear weapons are actually now illegal. Most, I think most UN members have signed on to this treaty.
Oh.
And it has, like a monitoring regimen and certain things that member states are not supposed to do. But it gets very little attention, and the United States, vetoed it. So it doesn't. None of the nuclear powers signed on.
Of course not. Why would you?
But
you've got the nukes.
All the guys with the big bombs are like, no,
everyone,
that's okay.
Everyone without the nukes can sit and swirl.
But it is putting some pressure on the nuclear powers. Unfortunately, it's just not enough to stop this spiraling arms race.
Yeah.
And what I discovered is, I go back every 6 months or so and just try to see where things stand with this. And really, I was shocked to see how little activity there's been related to the TPNW over the last 6 months. There wasn't much on YouTube about it, which I was listening to that as a podcast. I haven't searched very many other places, but it's a fairly big deal. I'm not a big fan of the UN, but it seems like for once it's been used for a fairly constructive purpose.
If you've got the nukes, it would be folly to give that up. There's no good reason to do so, politically or otherwise.
Then why did South Africa give up theirs?
Because they're foolish.
I don't think so.
What they wanted to do is make a statement that says, "Hey,
please invade us. We can't fight back with nukes."
Yeah, or, hey, we recognize that nuclear threats are even more grand, even a greater threat than just mere statism.
That's why you have the nukes.
What?
All of the former member states of the Soviet Union also gave up theirs if they had any access to them.
Well, not all of them.
I still think it's
I
foolish.
mean, Russia. Come on.
Oh, yeah, all except for Russia.
A little important there.
Let's scale this down. To end gun violence in the United States, we must all pass a treaty to turn in our weapons. Because it'd be safer for everybody.
Yeah. No, what needs to happen, of course, is that everybody should just be able to own a nuclear weapon.
That's what I'm saying. It's the complete opposite of what the proposal is.
Right.
The easiest way to defend yourself against a nuclear threat is to have one of your own. Then it's a standoff. Then it's a duel.
That's been gamed out. It's like, for instance, what would happen if making a nuclear weapon were just as easy as making a bow and arrow or something like that. The humans probably wouldn't exist anymore.
Hey, Mr. Ridley, thank you so much for the call. We appreciate you, man. Keep up the good work. 3D printed nuclear weapons, are they on the way? 603-283-6160. Should you be able to print one in the comfort of your own living room? Give us a call. Let us know. It's Free Talk Live. More coming up.
This hour of Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash Digital Cash. Dash is the cryptocurrency designed to be used for spending. In addition to being one of the world's first cryptocurrencies, Dash was the first crypto project to have a decentralized autonomous organization that to this day continues to improve and promote Dash. Every month, 10% of the mining rewards go into a treasury. Anyone with one Dash to spend can put forward a proposal to the Dash masternodes. The masternodes vet the proposals and decide which ones move forward and are funded by that treasury. Nowadays, DAOs are plentiful, but Dash paved the way by doing it first, nearly a decade ago. Dash is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies and is widely available on exchanges, including the decentralized Maya protocol, and in multi-crypto wallets. It's easy to get and use Dash. Start by learning more at dash.org. Thanks to the Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month to promote Dash on the air. Visit dash.org to learn about Dash, dash.org.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks with the Week in Review, and the week ended with a big win for former President Donald Trump at the U.S. Supreme Court. The justices declined to hear a case brought by Department of Justice Special Prosecutor Jack Smith, who wanted permission to fast-track questions that Trump attorneys have raised over whether their client is immune from prosecution on charges over his efforts to subvert the outcome of the 2020 election. Reporter Jody Schneider is with Bloomberg.
The court, without comment and without a public dissent, said they are not going to make a decision soon. This will actually hurt the prosecution's efforts. It doesn't tell us that they will ultimately say he's not immune. They just say they're not going to decide in a speedy fashion.
And that's a problem for the prosecution because it means the case is highly unlikely to get underway in Washington in early March, nor perhaps even before Election Day next November. On Tuesday, there was a bombshell decision by the Supreme Court in Colorado. It ruled that Donald Trump is ineligible to try and get his old job back, thanks to a clause in the 14th Amendment of the Constitution that says office holders who have led an insurrection are disqualified from further service. Sebastian Gorka, a former White House assistant to Trump, accused the Democrat-appointed justices who sit on the Colorado court of political skullduggery.
We know what this is all about. They know that Biden can't win, and they just want to make it impossible for the American people to freely choose their next chief executive.
The president of the Czech Republic declared 2 days of mourning after a 24-year-old student at Charles University opened fire at the Faculty of Arts building, killing 14 people and injuring more than 20 others. The gunman also died and is believed to have murdered his father earlier in the day. The United Nations finally passed a resolution on the crisis in Gaza, but it focused on the need for more humanitarian aid for the territory and stopped short of demanding a ceasefire. The US government forced multiple delays over the draft resolution's wording. FSN's Will Denzelo with more from our bureau at UN headquarters in New York.
13 of the 15-member body voted in favour of the draft resolution. The US and Russia abstained, but crucially didn't use their power of the veto. Moscow accused Washington of watering the resolution down, but failed in its attempts to reintroduce language calling for the suspension of hostilities in Gaza. The text does call for urgent steps to be taken to allow safe and unhindered humanitarian access into Gaza.
Britain's government has delayed plans to more than double the salary requirement for citizens bringing foreign relatives to the country. The announcement came amid criticism that families could be separated by the policy, which campaigners say disproportionately impacts people on lower incomes. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
Welcome back. Thank you for tuning in and listening to tonight's edition of Free Talk Live. The telephone number, if you would like to join us, because we are a live call-in radio program where you talk about whatever's on your mind, is 603-283-6160. Again, 603-283-6160. In the studio this evening... Sneevening?
Stevening.
This Stevening?
You think about that soda Bonnie told you about.
There's not even anybody named Steve here, although I have mentioned on air several times that there are too many friends of mine with certain names. Steve is one of them. Chris is another one. And there's another one I can't think of right now, but it'll come to me later. But yeah, so anyway, in the studio this evening, it's myself, the captain.
Peakless Mountaineer.
And Switchy Switch.
Switchy Switch?
Whatever. Richie Rich.
Do you play the Nintendo Switch?
I do. That's like my go-to. I have 3 of those things.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you so
that you can switch between them?
Between switches?
Kind of. Like I've got one
switch.
I got one in the living room, one in the bedroom, and the handheld one.
How do you know
switch?
How do you know which switch is which?
Well, because there's like all 3 of the different models currently, so it's pretty easy to determine.
Models. Before we go on, I want to tell you that you can join, well, me and other liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 13th through the 16th for the 8th annual Fork Fest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Fork Fest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which has sold out in recent years.
Yes, they have.
Fork Fest happens the week before the Porcupine Freedom Festival. Fork Fest is decentralized, which means there's no ticket cost, and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 13th through the 16th. You can find out more at the unofficial website, forkfest.party. You can also connect with other attendees on the Forkfest Telegram and Matrix chat rooms, as well as the Forkfest Forum. You can find links to those at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there June 13th through the 16th, forkfest.party. All right. We started talking about crappy birthday to the Federal Reserve 110 years ago. It was
decreasing value of your dollar.
It was established, and since then, something like 99% of the purchasing value of the dollar has gone away. That is to say, $1 110 years ago would buy 99% more than it does today. So if you can find something
today.
Yeah, so if you could find So if you could find something that costs $1 today, you could have bought 100 of them in 1913.
And people still trust this thing.
Why?
No, I don't
Why
know
that sounds like we've had not 2% inflation a year.
No. The inception of the Federal Reserve heralded an era of fiat money, fractional reserve banking, and perpetual debt, and it established the constructs fundamentally flawed, designed to serve the interests of a select few at the expense of many. That's you and me.
Yep.
At its core lies the fallacy of fiat money, a system wherein currency holds no intrinsic value and is instead backed by the mere decree of government. Subject to...
It's amazing to hear like anti-crypto people bring that up. Like, crypto is fiat because it's not backed by anything.
False. Crypto is backed by mathematics.
Understood. But then they totally disregard the U.S. dollar, right? As, no, that's government money. That's so much better.
That's backed by the government.
It's yeah.
So to get a grip on what sort of propaganda is being fed to the public regarding cryptocurrency, we have libertarians around the state of New Hampshire have these meetups that happen. Some of them are pretty regular, some of them not so regular. I was at one of the regular ones, and one of our co-hosts, sometimes called Joa.
Okay.
He was outside, I think, having a smoke or whatever, and he's talking to some non-libertarian chick, right? I think he's hitting on her or whatever. I don't know what's going on. But I'm getting ready to leave, come do the show, and he's talking to her about cryptocurrency, right? And so I'm walking out the door. He goes, "Hey, Captain, she thinks that cryptocurrency, isn't a good idea." And I'm like, "Oh, really? Why?" And she's like, "Well, from everything on the news that I've seen, it just seems really shady." And I'm like, "You want to know what a really shady currency is?" And she's like, "What?" I'm like, "The United States dollar." And she goes, "Oh," and then I turned and walked away and came to do the show. But like, no, really, like,
and Joe,
like all of the terrorism in the world, all of the criminality, all of the kidnapping, all of the paid murders
is done in the United States dollar.
Yeah,
until cryptocurrency came along.
And even though cryptocurrency has come along, it's still all done in the dollar.
All right.
Not all, but like the majority of it is still the dollar. Like
the U.S. government has a lot of confiscated crypto, man.
Sure.
Like they're going to be spending it on bad stuff too.
But what they're putting forth is a whole bunch of BS propaganda that like somehow cryptocurrency is the choice
Hucksters,
of evildoers. Scammers. No. The biggest scammer on planet Earth is government. And the biggest scam, the biggest pyramid scam, the biggest like false thing that you could ever hold in your hand is something called the United States dollar.
And it's lost value over 110 years.
Like all of it's bad.
Like all,
like all of it.
It's approaching all of it. Like everyone talks about hyperinflation. I go, is 99 not enough?
Right?
Is 99% not enough? Like, can we skip the hyperinflation part and just go like 99's enough? Let's stop.
Well, that's not in a year though.
I don't care. I don't care how long. If it's a year, well, then you're talking about hyperinflation. Like, why wait? It's around the corner, and even if it's not like right around the corner.
But at least it's not volatile. It can be relied upon to be worth less every year.
Every year, yes, it reliably goes down every year. I think people hang on to this thing.
Well, you see, fiat is actually us. We're the ones demanding that this be used as currency.
No, we're not.
So I don't know what the book definition of hyperinflation is, but I believe hyperinflation would be where you get your paycheck today and you better spend it all because you can't buy the same amount of goods with it tomorrow. We're not there yet, right? If you get a paycheck for $100, right, you can if you can, right, like hold on to some of that all week long, and it'll buy you about the same amount of goods all week long.
All week long, sure. All month long, meh.
Perhaps, but as we get to year long, right?
Yeah.
So I think that hyperinflation, at least the modern definition, means that like it can't be worth the same amount tomorrow. Right, is what I think where the hyper part is. What we're seeing is inflation. We're seeing rampant inflation. We're seeing high inflation, and that's not just because people are like spending their money on weed.
I think the difference really at this point is just a few products at the grocery store will be a higher price tomorrow. I mean, I guarantee you that much. They aren't coming down. Right. They are going up. A few of them. Whereas what people expect with hyperinflation is all of them are going up tomorrow.
Right. And we're also seeing like, I'm trying to remember the name of it, shrinkflation.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Smaller products.
In concert with the large rate of inflation, right?
See, it happens slowly enough that they can redesign the bottle.
Like I went to buy it was like a pound of, some deli sliced chicken for sandwiches or whatever, right? And, the bag that you buy in the deli. I didn't go to the deli and get it freshly sliced so that they actually weigh a pound and, I went to, the pre-packaged area of my local grocery store and went, oh, look, it's some sliced chicken. I'll buy a pound of it. Little did I realize until I got home that the formerly 16-ounce package was now 14 ounces.
Hyperinflation, real quick, 50% per month.
50% per month.
That's what it says.
So I wonder where
as originally defined.
I wonder where we're at with USD in that. Like I don't feel like if I had $1,000, I feel like I could buy about the same amount of goods at the beginning of the month as I could at the end.
Yeah, but if it costs $1,500 by the end,
then okay, sure, yeah.
And then once it drops below that, that's the end of that hyperinflationary period.
Yeah, the canary in the coal mine for me is the dollar store. So they had
when
to
they
move
went to $1.25.
Right. So here's something I think to track. How long do they get to hold it at $1.25? Because there's going to be a point where they're like, we just can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
Like they had to have plenty of meetings to be like, okay, how far can we go with this? Okay, look, we just cannot do another quarter of holding our prices at $1.
Well, and also remember that with the dollar store, like the $1.25 part of it is what preceded the $1.25 was the lowering of quality to keep everything at $1.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So as everything got worse, so did the stuff at the dollar store.
Well,
as far as quality is concerned, because you couldn't get that quality for the same price anymore.
Right. And here's the thing: the quality didn't go up. When they moved it to $1.25, they kept they're already at the bottom.
Right.
They have scraped the bottom of the quality barrel.
That's what I'm saying.
Which means they're going to have to keep looking at that and keep watching. Okay, at this bare bone quality of near nothing. How long can we hold the $1.25 price? And at some point, they're going to have to move it again.
Yeah.
Dear people who own and operate anything that resembles a dollar store, the dollar store, the Family Dollar, Dollar Tree, Dollar General, right? All these kinds of places. I think that the right move for you financially is because I've been to these places and not everything in there is $1.
Well, Dollar Tree it was. Is it Dollar Tree?
Some of them,
Dollar Tree,
especially when they first came out. Hang on.
I don't count those as dollar stores.
I want to finish my statement. When these stores first came out, yes, there was a store called Everything is $1, and yes, indeed, everything in there was $1. I think if you're going to move forward as a business, particularly with inflation the way it is, that what you're going to have to do in order to maintain the dollar singular in your business name is to just charge $1 for people to either join your club or to get in the door, like a cover charge or something like that.
All right.
Yeah, it's the dollar store, and that way we can offer stuff less expensive than the other places, so they're not pigeonholed into trying to make everything $1, right? Where they have to have like loss leaders and all that stuff.
They're not anymore because everything in every dollar store is more than $1.
I don't know about that. I haven't been to one in a while.
Well,
but
Dollar Tree, everything is $1.25 now.
Right.
Everything?
Yes.
Because everything was $1. They cut the quality of it as far as they could.
Did they change their name to $1.25?
No, it's still the Dollar Tree.
Well, then they're false advertising.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Because Dollar General, all of those,
Family Dollar,
$5, $10, $7.50.
Yeah, but those are different, right? The store that was called Everything's $1, like that's false advertising if everything in there is not $1.
Sure.
Right. If something in there is $2 or $1.25,
pretty sure that store doesn't exist.
Well, it did at some point.
It did, and it's almost like the Federal Reserve means that we couldn't keep nice things like that.
Well, which
anymore.
is neither federal and it doesn't have any
But
reserves.
Dollar Tree was the last holdout of everything in there was $1.
Yeah.
And then they went, we can't sustain this anymore. Everything's $1.25. Sorry.
Let's go to some of your calls and thoughts. I believe this is Gigi in South Carolina. Gigi, you're on Free Talk Live.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. Number one, my husband and I received 2 more letters from Mr. Freeman.
Wow. Nice.
Yes. Now, we have a question, please, Captain, because he said in one letter that on the 19th of December, this past week, he had a hearing to inform him as to where he would be relocated. Do we know that address yet?
The address, the hearing on the 19th, it has been postponed to my knowledge.
Okay.
And I don't have the new date as of yet.
Okay. Well, I, of course, responded. We will mail it. Hold on, please. Pardon me for coughing in your ear.
Use the cough button.
We will mail our response letter to Mr. Freeman Tuesday to the same address as we have presently.
Yes.
And secondly, once again, my husband and I finished watching a super flick with Gene Hackman and Mikhail Baryshnikov called Company Business about Russian and American spying. And as we saw the end of the movie, we looked at each other and we said, yes, perfect title, business as usual. Instead of working cooperatively, amicably, jointly for the betterment of science, medicine, technology, infrastructure, engineering, the same crap still goes on with every government. Now we have the European Union, and everybody is still looking out for themselves, spying on each other, and they are so-called allies. So nothing has changed. That's why I paid attention, and I thought about what you and Richie always emphasize. No government, because it's always the same, even though the players change. I learned something this evening from you guys.
Aw, well, thank you so much.
Let me play devil's advocate again
then. I was a professor of international relations for 22 years down in Florida, but I take my hats off to you, gentlemen. I learned something.
Let's play devil's advocate again then. In at least corporate American capitalist business structure, right? The competitors are competing against each other for your dollar.
They talked about that in
most
the movie
times
as well.
There
Depends on which field. I mean, if you think that J.P. Morgan and Wells Fargo are competing against each other, no, they are far more colluding than competing against each other.
In far as Gigi's things, that would be a good thing.
Nature, exactly what you are touching upon in the movie.
I'm just saying, competition breeds innovation. Generally, right? If you take out the competition aspect of things, then innovation is stifled, right? Because no one's trying to outcompete the others.
Industrial espionage and I'm trying to use the proper phrase academically. Entrepreneurial espionage.
Sure.
I learned a lot from this movie.
Right, but why do we elevate it within the corporate structure and denigrate it within the government structure?
Oh, that's a good point. Aren't they one and the same, essentially? Is that what you're trying to say?
No, I'm saying you would want, if you believe in the government system, you would want governments competing with each other, right? For if anything,
I see.
citizens.
Okay, yes. Okay, well, as I said, I take my hats off to you guys. I learned something. It's always important to keep an open mind, listen to other perspectives, because somewhere along the line you can learn and still grow intellectually. So I take my hats off to you guys, and I say thank you.
You are welcome.
I'd say I'm way more concerned with when different governments cooperate and when the Republicans and Democrats cooperate. That is when the most scary things come out.
Oh, yeah.
What about the newly elected libertarian
quote unquote
president of Argentina,
quote,
who
quote,
now
unquote.
has banned political demonstrations? I love it.
Like, I'm for any step in the direction of, the abolition of the institute known as government. And if that means, disassembling, taking offline a bunch of different departments within a government, I'm for it.
About increasing social welfare.
And like the only, yeah.
Shame on you, Richard.
There are,
that's what he did.
There are issues with what he's doing. However, there has been nothing like this in history since I've been alive. So I am paying attention to it. I'm not, shouting from the rooftops, look at how awesome this guy is, because I'm not sure. He says a lot of things that I think sound cool, and he's doing some things that I think are pretty cool.
So far,
as far as disassembling, organizations within the government in certain areas.
Democratic president of Ukraine, who just gets more and more and more money from good old USA, is banning free elections. But yet, he's a democratically elected official.
And trying to conscript old people so they have more frontline fighters.
No comment. Israel is doing the same with reservists. It's just as disgraceful.
Hey, I want to go back to your question about Ian Freeman and his rescheduled hearing.
Okay.
So the date for his hearing that had been scheduled on the 19th was canceled, and as of December 17th, we had no update. However, I'm looking at an update now. This is not official. This is from an individual that I think has the right information, but I haven't verified this myself. He says Ian's restitution hearing, this is where the government decides how much money they're going to rape Mr. Freeman for the no victims that apparently are involved in this case, has been rescheduled for January 8th at 10 a.m.
He will be where he is until then,
and
least. Then he will be transferred. Yeah,
I think that there's one other, I don't know if it's a hearing, but some other procedural thing that needs to happen after this restitution hearing before he actually gets moved to a federal system.
His due process.
What I don't like about any of this, of course, is that I'm told, and again, from a person I trust, I haven't verified this information, I'm told that Ian is prevented from racking up what's known as good time, or good behavior is the old term they used to use for this, until he is in federal custody. So right now...
That is correct.
And that sucks, because he's spending an enormous amount of time...
attorney can bring it up in writing, submit it, and argue it in a motion regarding serve time.
Okay, so I imagine
because it will be white-collar, minimum security, drug-less, LESS.
So if they move him, does that mean all the appeals happen in a court where he's not going to have the same level of community support as he would at the New Hampshire courthouse?
No, I don't believe that would happen.
Yeah, I don't know that. It depends
If they
on
move him.
It depends on the location. I don't know that there's a federal penitentiary in New Hampshire.
So where are they moving him to?
I assume Mass. I assume the same place
Not
Arya
necessarily,
is.
gentlemen. You'd be surprised.
So if they move, let's say they move him to Arizona for
End up
whatever
in
reason,
Kentucky
and he
or
appeals.
Iowa.
Right.
It all depends upon where he is sent. Who makes that decision? I don't know.
I don't care who makes the decision.
It's
I just
the
want
BOP,
to know.
the Bureau of Prisons makes that
Well,
decision.
it would be of concern to his wife because
Right.
she would want to be able to at least drive the distance to visit him.
Understood, but I
So-
don't think they're going to make that determination based on Bonnie's preference.
Well,
I didn't say that is how it's made. It's
Right,
not
so
necessarily
my-
that he
my-
will
my
be sent
point-
to a
can we
federal
mute her for a
facility
second?
in Massachusetts. They could put him on a bus or a plane elsewhere.
Gigi, hold on for a minute. Go ahead, Richie.
My point is that if they move him, wherever it is, I don't care if it's Kentucky, Indiana, Iowa, who gives a darn, right? When he appeals this, as he's going to do, right, are those hearings then going to be held in an Iowa courthouse? And if so, he's not going to get the same community level support
Stays
of
in
activism.
the original jurisdiction.
So he would be then transported from an Iowa jail cell to a New Hampshire courthouse for any appeal hearing.
That part would be done electronically by video, but the attorney would be arguing the motions at hearings. Motion calendars is the proper term.
In New Hampshire.
In the original jurisdiction.
And then would
because
the-
that's where the cause
So where would
of
we go
action
to support
or
Ian?
causes plural of actions plural took place.
Are those hearings public?
Everything is public,
Well.
criminal and civil. The only thing that's never public is when it involves a juvenile who is being tried as a juvenile, not a juvenile being tried as an adult.
So we're going to go to the New Hampshire courthouse to watch Ian on the TV.
Hey, Gigi, thank you so much for the call. We appreciate you. 603-283-6160. If you want to call and comment about anything we've been talking about tonight or change the subject, bring up whatever's on your mind. It's Free Talk Live, 603-283-6160. More is on the way.
While Digital Communications Coordinator Brian Tyler is considered by many of his coworkers to be the cutest guy around the offices of Western Psychological Publishing Services, employees conceded today the 27-year-old is not even particularly attractive.
Brian gets a lot of attention from girls around here, but if I saw him in a bar, I don't know if I would even notice him. Put him next to Glenn or Mike, and then, sure, he actually looks pretty good.
Coworkers explained to reporters that by everyday standards, Tyler would at best be considered moderately good-looking, but explained that given the abundance of unattractive men at the publishing firm, female employees often go out of their way to make small talk with the 27-year-old at his desk or eat lunch with him in the office kitchen.
I saw him walking to work the other day, and half the guys on the street were easily better looking than him. But here, he's the hottest guy around. It's almost kind of sad. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'd still him.
This is the Onion News Network.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks with the Week in Review, and the week ended with a big win for former President Donald Trump at the U.S. Supreme Court. The justices declined to hear a case brought by Department of Justice Special Prosecutor Jack Smith, who wanted permission to fast-track questions that Trump attorneys have raised over whether their client is immune from prosecution on charges over his efforts to subvert the outcome of the 2020 election. Reporter Jody Schneider is with Bloomberg.
The court, without comment and without a public dissent, said they are not going to make a decision soon. This will actually hurt the prosecution's efforts. It doesn't tell us that they will ultimately say he's not immune. They just say they're not going to decide in a speedy fashion.
And that's a problem for the prosecution because it means the case is highly unlikely to get underway in Washington in early March, nor perhaps even before Election Day next November. On Tuesday, there was a bombshell decision by the Supreme Court in Colorado. It ruled that Donald Trump is ineligible to try and get his old job back, thanks to a clause in the 14th Amendment of the Constitution that says office holders who have led an insurrection are disqualified from further service. Sebastian Gorka, a former White House assistant to Trump, accused the Democrat-appointed justices who sit on the Colorado court of political skullduggery.
We know what this is all about. They know that Biden can't win, and they just want to make it impossible for the American people to freely choose their next chief executive.
The president of the Czech Republic declared 2 days of mourning after a 24-year-old student at Charles University opened fire at the Faculty of Arts building, killing 14 people and injuring more than 20 others. The gunman also died and is believed to have murdered his father earlier in the day. The United Nations finally passed a resolution on the crisis in Gaza, but it focused on the need for more humanitarian aid for the territory and stopped short of demanding a ceasefire. The US government forced multiple delays over the draft resolution's wording. FSN's Will Denzelo with more from our bureau at UN headquarters in New York.
13 of the 15-member body voted in favour of the draft resolution. The US and Russia abstained, but crucially didn't use their power of the veto. Moscow accused Washington of watering the resolution down, but failed in its attempts to reintroduce language calling for the suspension of hostilities in Gaza. The text does call for urgent steps to be taken to allow safe and unhindered humanitarian access into Gaza.
Britain's government has delayed plans to more than double the salary requirement for citizens bringing foreign relatives to the country. The announcement came amid criticism that families could be separated by the policy, which campaigners say disproportionately impacts people on lower incomes. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. Former New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani filed for bankruptcy protection on Thursday. The move came 1 week after he was ordered to pay 2 election workers in the U.S. state of Georgia $148 million for defaming them on social media. One of the 2 women is Shay Moss.
The flame that Giuliani lit with those lies and passed to so many others to keep that flame blazing changed every aspect of our lives. Our homes, our family, our work, our sense of safety, our mental health. As we move forward, our greatest wish is that no one, no election worker or voter or school board member or anyone else ever experiences anything like what we went through. You all matter, and you are all important.
Bankruptcy will not protect Giuliani from the financial judgment because damages for defamation are not eligible to be eliminated during the bankruptcy process. A man in the American state of Oklahoma was exonerated after spending 48 years in jail for a murder that he did not commit. Glyn Simmons is now 71. His lawyers are pushing for compensation, as FSN's North America correspondent Caroline Malone reports.
The longest-serving inmate to have been found innocent of a crime, Glyn Simmons served 48 years for murder. At the beginning of his sentence, he was on death row until a Supreme Court ruling on capital punishment. This week, a judge made the ruling after finding prosecutors did not turn over key evidence such as a police report about other suspects.
Stories we'll cover in the week ahead. The Turkish Parliament's Foreign Affairs Commission will consider Sweden's bid to join NATO. Wall Street is hoping for a so-called Santa rally to close out the year. And the US state of Maine may disqualify Donald Trump from remaining on the presidential ballot. And that is the Week in Review from Feature Story News. Simon Marks reporting.
5-Hour Energy CEO Manoj Bhargava claimed this week that the 13 deaths associated with his product were just collateral damage in his company's ongoing war against that 230 feeling. Quote, "We honor the sacrifice of all those who have fallen. I wish we could live in a world where you could get a spike of energy and no crash and not die. But that's not the world we live in." Passionate supporters have flooded social media, demonstrating the terrifying costs of midday drowsiness and fatigue, with consumers saying that when it comes to extra alertness in the mid-afternoon, they are willing to pay any price.
As the wife of a 5-hour energy drinker, we've had to sacrifice a lot in the name of long-lasting bursts of energy that carry you out of the workday and into the evening. We knew the risks going in.
Bhargava says his company has no plans to stop until the 230 feeling is completely wiped off the map, at which point they will turn their attention to that 330 feeling, 430 feeling, and people with a case of the Mondays.
This is the Onion News Network.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
Yes, it is Free Talk Live. Thank you for tuning in and listening to tonight's program. If you've never heard of Free Talk Live before, you're new to this program, visit freetalklive.com to find out all about us and what we do. In the studio tonight, it's myself, the captain.
Bigless Mountaineer.
And Richie Rich.
Before we go on, this hour of Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash Digital Cash. Dash is the cryptocurrency designed to be used for spending. In addition to being one of the world's first cryptocurrencies, Dash was the first crypto project to have or become a decentralized autonomous organization. And to this day, it continues to improve and promote Dash. Every month, 10% of the mining rewards go into a treasury, and anyone with one Dash to spend can put forward a proposal to the Dash master nodes. The master nodes then vet the proposals and decide which ones move forward and are funded by the Treasury. Nowadays, DAOs are plentiful, but Dash paved the way by doing it first nearly a decade ago. Dash is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies and is widely available on exchanges, including the decentralized Maya protocol and in multi-crypto wallets. It's easy to get and easy to use Dash. Start by learning more at dash.org. And big thanks to the Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month to promote Dash on the air. Visit dash.org to learn more about Dash. That's dash.org. All right. Let's just go right away to some of your calls and thoughts. We have, I believe this is Ricky from the Commonwealth calling. Ricky, you're on Free Talk Live.
No doubt there, Brother Captain. Brother Richie. Peakless Mountaineer, good evening.
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 Yo.
Well, before I go into my topic, I just wanted to say if you ever get a chance to talk to Brother Ian there, Brother Captain, just let him know that Ricky from the Commonwealth loves him and he misses him, and he looks forward to him coming back to where he belongs real soon.
Roger that. Consider the message relayed the next time I talk to him.
You got it, brother. Thank you. Anyways, now on to the important phone call. Brother Richie.
Yo.
Hey. You know, I couldn't think of anything more on topic. You know, a couple of weeks back, we were talking about certain predictions. Now, here's the thing. Here's what I'd like to do. I haven't forgotten. You know, in Peakless, you had a great idea, and I just didn't have a chance. But here, I want to reiterate my predictions, and then we speak about terms. All right?
Let's hear it.
So here were the predictions. I'll run them past real quick, Richie, and then we'll talk terms. My predictions are that on around July 2025, gas price is going to go beyond biblical epic proportions in price. Okay, second, by the end of 2025, the dollar will fall. And then third, by the end of the first quarter of 2026, we're going to have a new experiment. And that means that this country is going to become a third world country. Now, I did say as a caveat, I wasn't going to say it because I thought irresponsible. I thought maybe it's a good thing, though, that the only thing that can stop this is World War III. Now, that being said, my predictions will come true notwithstanding. Now, I thought Peakless is right, and I think we should make the bet in Dash. Sounds appropriate, you know, Captain?
Well, first of all, your predictions are vague. Right?
No, they're not vague. They're accurate, brother. What vague? Oh, Louis.
Well, no. Hold on.
Richie.
As much as I hate to agree with Richie Rich, and you know I do, he has a point here that we need to know. We need to know what you mean astronomical prices.
It means they're going to be so sky high.
No, we need a number. We need a number.
Oh, come on.
No,
I mean,
this
how you
is
settle
a
the
bet.
bets.
Okay,
Otherwise, we're going to get to 2026, and you're going to be like, they were astronomical, and he'll be like, they were not astronomical, they were just absurd.
No. All I'm saying, okay, here. Put it this way. The economic oblivion one will be enough for this bet to be satisfied. That will happen, and so will the others.
Okay, what do you mean economic oblivion? How do you measure that? We need objective measurements, or we can't make a bet.
Well, you don't listen to the show enough. That's the problem, Rich. The Peakless knows very well what I'm talking about.
You still got to put a number on it.
30 million people become a third world country. That's an economic oblivion as a result of the dollar falling at the end of 2025.
So what does the dollar fall to by the end of 2025
El Zippo. And it's due to the gold because
it's going to fall like another penny.
You didn't listen to my predictions back the night.
Well, this sounds great. Like whatever the bet amount is, you just owe that to Richie in dollars, and then he owes you something in Dash.
But no. We'll use Dash.
It's the other way.
The dollar's going to be worthless. We'll use Dash.
So what's the bet? How many Dash?
Well, if it's worthless, then you can get as much of it as you want.
No, here's the thing. We're going to make it appropriate because, things do fluctuate in the amount of Dash. So I'm saying we're going to do
They fluctuate in the amount of Dash as it relates to the dollar. If you're going to settle this in Dash, it has to be like a fixed amount of Dash.
Don't worry. The dollar's not going to fall until the end of 2025, Richie. At the beginning of 2025, that's where we're going to make the monetary bet. Wouldn't make sense to do it now because it may be more or less the amount in crypto.
No, that's why you just make it in a fixed amount of crypto. If you want to bet like 5 Dash, I don't know what Dash is worth.
All right, okay, we could do it now.
How much is 5 Dash worth? Current present market value.
It's like 30-ish.
30-ish? Okay.
Per Dash?
$30?
Per Dash.
Yeah, so 150-ish.
So 5 Dash then.
Okay.
You want to do what it... Okay, we can do that.
That's worth about $166.25.
There we go.
That's per Dash?
And what I'll say...
No, 5 Dash.
5 Dash. Okay, yeah. So 5 Dash.
Ricky from the Commonwealth. And we'll make the bet, and I will make sure you'll have yours on your end. I'll have mine on my end. At the beginning, say, I don't know, about February, say at 2025.
Whatever. I probably have more than that right now just because of my Free Talk Live stipend.
There you go.
But
does that sound fair? Around February 2025, we'll put the money on the line?
No, let's put it on the line right now. If you bet 5 Dash, I will bet you 5 Dash.
Right
you might not have 5 Dash right now.
Well, you better get it now before the dollar goes to Bolivian.
Right.
Dude, that's not going to happen until the end of 2025, Richie.
Well, then you have plenty of time to acquire 5 Dash.
Right, but at the end of 2025, Dash might be worth $1,000 each.
No, I like where Ricky's going with this. In February, we need to have this put in escrow.
I'll put it in escrow. If I got it, I'll put it in escrow right now.
I like it. That's exactly what I'm saying.
There we go. Okay, so Richie's already got his 5 Dash. Ricky from the Commonwealth is acquiring his 5 Dash by February, and then we will put both of them in escrow.
Okay, and and by the end of 2025, the dollar has to be valued at 0.
Right? No, what will happen is it will be dollared by 0. But see, the third prediction is what's important. By the end of the first quarter of 2026, we're going to be in economic oblivion.
What does that mean?
The third one got to go.
Well, what does that mean?
Yeah, we need objective measures or we can't make a bet there.
Well,
See,
we're
Richie,
only
I
right now.
spoke
We're
about it on
only
the
betting
show.
on the value of the dollar because you didn't give me a number for gas prices.
Richie,
you
you're
didn't define
terrible
economic
for it,
Bolivian.
for it. First of all, that means that we will be a third world country. Peakless knows very well because we actually discussed this because of the gold with BRICS and their back currency.
So can we define
now, the fact
third
is,
world
By
country?
the way, just for the record, that night when Saudi Arabia and Egypt joined
First
BRICS,
quarter
that night when I went
2026
on-
GDP drops below.
This is the Richie Show.
Okay, hold
When I went
on. I got it.
When I went on that night.
So, well, hold on, Richie.
Ricky.
Let me ask you. Okay, how about this? Okay, so right now, America is the economic powerhouse of the world. It is number one. If it is not number one by the end of 2025, then you owe Ricky from the Commonwealth your 5-. But if it is still number one in the world, as measured by GDP and all of that, then Ricky owes you 5-.
I can't. But wait a minute. Hold on. I said a third prediction. That's that we will be in economic oblivion. I'm talking.
So
we will
5-
be
per
worse
prediction.
than Venezuela.
Okay, well, do you have a better specific thing that you can point to and say yes or no?
What if Venezuela rebounds?
Because, I mean, look, if any of this doesn't happen, in theory, you owe Richie Rich. But if
Make it
all
10
three
dash.
of them occur, then Richie Rich owes you.
Yeah, but here's the thing: economic oblivion. That will happen, Peakless. Now you know you were on that night.
But he won't
you
define
know, You know that Brother Ian said my analysis of the BRICS alliance was correct and what happened. So Richie's going to have his share of problems because I already went through.
I
this
do
that
think
night.
that I do think that you are you assume that the BRICS alliance will be way more trusting of each other and efficient because it requires
you're
both
thinking
those
they'll fall
things
apart.
in order to get an actual BRICS currency rolling. They have to actually be effective, and there has to be a level of trust between those countries that basically do not have all their poop in a group as it is.
So this is a good bet for me.
So I think that the BRICS currency will happen. It's just
Yeah.
going to take some time.
So this is a good bet for me.
Yeah, I think this is
Make
a good
it
bet
10
for you.
dash. 5- per prediction.
10-.
5- per
repeat
prediction.
Repeat that.
Well,
5
5- per prediction would be 15-.
Well, but it can be either or. It doesn't have to be all of them right or all of them wrong.
Okay, no, that's great. Okay, 5- per prediction. And let's get specific metrics for what does and does not count as America being a third world country, economic oblivion, and what was the third one?
The price of gas.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, and we can
Not
get
in that
like
order,
a
but
numerical.
nonetheless.
I don't care what
price of
order it
gas.
is. You're making 3
Okay,
predictions.
So let's make it simple. The gas price is going to go so sky high. And by the way, the 8%
Put a
of
number
trade
on
agreements
it.
we've forgotten to do.
Right?
Second prediction is the dollar will fall down to
No.
nothing.
Wait,
Hold on.
stop right there, Ricky. Go back to the gas prices.
Yeah.
The gas price will be above how much in U.S. dollars?
By what
I don't know. It'll
So
be
are we talking
high.
at least $100?
Well, I'm talking oil prices in general. So the whole thing will be so sky
Okay,
high we
great.
can't handle it.
Okay, if oil prices skyrocket, then gas prices will also skyrocket. But
Skyrocket.
we can see at the pump with our own 2 eyes what that number says. And do you think that that's going to be 3 digits or more in U.S. dollars?
I think it'll be. Oh shit!
Oh, come on.
Paul, don't drop me.
Oh,
Anyway.
man. I kind of have to, Ricky.
Talk to you next
No,
week.
you
Talk
don't
to you
have to
next week, man.
See what happens. You get a bunch of guys together
Having
and
a-
they start locker room talking,
Yeah.
making bets.
Grab them by the stars and bars.
I'm having a bit of a technicolty with my headphones here. I'm going to try and
All he's
solve
got to
it.
do is put like a number on it, right? Like I'm not generally a betting man, but this seems like a sure thing based on his absence of fundamental definitions.
Ordinarily, I'd agree with you, but I honestly cannot see any of what's going to happen after March.
Okay.
Yeah,
But
there are so many things that are all clustered together that are working together this March that I
Okay.
cannot see the economic future past that.
Got
It
it.
could be business as usual,
And
or it could be oblivion.
And I think the time frame for like Bolivian I'm just going to do the Mike Tyson thing because you're laughing at it, is too short for these things. Right?
The economic boulevard will rise.
The Bolivian?
Right.
Not Oblivion.
Right, not Oblivion. Bolivian. I'm going to eat his children, turn them into Bolivian, whatever he said. Either way, right? So the dollar goes to zero.
You start talking like this?
Okay, that's likely not going to happen. Right? We went through the Amero stage several years ago, early conspiracy theorists.
Yeah. I forgot
Hey,
about
do you remember the Amero?
Yeah.
Right? The dollar's not going to go to zero. It's going, not in the next year and a half. It's 1% based on what it was in 1913. Fine, right? But it's still going to have value somewhere down the line. Right?
Yeah, I think this idea of going to zero is mostly not a thing. Like, it does occasionally happen. Zimbabwe, that went to zero.
Well, 1/1 of or whatever, but you could still.
And you guys are like, if we talk about
going to a trillionth of it, that is not going to zero.
I get it. So safe bet there.
Safe bet.
If we talk about like something tangible and real that common folk can, sort of wrap their brains around. When I was 16, 1988, 89, whenever that was, cigarettes were $1.25 for a pack.
Okay.
Right now they're $10.
Sure.
So I don't know what the math is there, but to me that's an astronomical, increase in price.
Agree.
Right.
So a 10-fold increase in gas would be astronomical for that one. If we're still talking about
that was my backup question. Is like, okay, are we talking 3 digits? If he'd have said no, all right. Are we talking 2 digits? Are we talking $30 for gas?
Right. So if gas is
you still
$4
make the
a
bet?
gallon, 10-fold would be what? $40 a gallon?
$40 a gallon.
I mean,
now there's a serious question.
There's a number, and that's what we're looking for.
I would still make that bet because there's too much political pressure to keep that number down.
I think that depends. No, I think that wildly depends. So, like right now, there is a tremendous clash between the sort of World Economic Forum communist faction of America and sort of not that, the more like fascist elements of America.
Sure.
Like there's an actual fight going on. Now, if the communist elements get their way, they will absolutely make $30 a gallon gasoline at some point pretty soon. And they'll be happy to make sure that you have to ride your bike to work or get a new job.
And Biden is already releasing some of the American strategic reserves to kind of mitigate prices as it is. So if there's enough political pushback on like, we can't do this, we're not going to go to work, right? We're not going to ride our bikes. It's New Hampshire. It snows. No one's going to be no one's going to be commuting by bike to work, right? There will be political pushback. They'll open up fracking or any of the other reserves. Right, they'll buy it from other nations that aren't part of OPEC. They'll artificially bring that price down.
Yeah,
right,
I mean,
to
it
appease Americans.
is really important for people to know that the same mechanism that keeps diamonds expensive keeps gas expensive.
It's artificially set.
Yes, it's artificially set. It's artificially capped in both this country and other countries.
Right.
The means by which you can get it, and whether or not you can get a permit for drilling, and all of these things.
So at $15 a gallon, no one goes to work because it costs more to drive to work than what you're getting paid, right? Or close to that. And so that shuts down the economy. They'll fix the gas thing.
And then in comes Captain, who invents snow tires for bicycles.
Again, we're talking about the next year and a half.
Well, okay, great. Let's look at a year and a half. Okay. So what if at the same time that they're upping this over $15 a gallon, so it is prohibitively expensive to get to work, they are also subsidizing buses and subways and all of that stuff. Because you have to remember how much of the voter base is in cities, and buses work fine there, and it's good for the planet. You've got to appease the sky gods, or they will increase the temperature by 1 degree centigrade.
So where are the gas prices we're talking about? Is it national average? Is it local average? Is it Pennsylvania? Is it New Hampshire? Right. We don't have the infrastructure to run a train. They're going to have to build that. No, from what I've seen in Hawaii and their rail system, that's a 30-year project.
Hey,
they're not going to do anything anytime soon with that. Not in the next
and that
18
tends
months.
to be the way that this runs, is that they make the gas prices extremely high, and then they subsidize it where they want your economic activity. If you're a, let's call it, essential worker, like, for example, growing food, then they'll give you a government subsidy for your gas to bring the prices back to something reasonable.
Okay.
But if you're not an essential worker, then they're not going to help you.
Are either
Well, then
of
you're on
you-
welfare because you're not going to go to work.
Well, you should have lived in a 15-minute city to begin with.
Are either of you familiar with the carnival ride, the bumper cars?
Yeah.
And
Master at
have
those
you
things.
looked at like how they actually function?
They're electric, well, on the roof.
Right. So they have a pole sticking out of the back with a little metal curved bar that touches the roof. And when it does, it conducts electricity that makes the car go.
Yep.
I don't know if you know this, and I don't know however many other big cities this is the case in, but when I was in Seattle, all of their city buses are what they call dual fuel. They're either diesel or electric. When a bus travels outside of the downtown, quote unquote, Seattle area, I don't know who defines these things. It only works on, we'll call it fossil fuel, right? Diesel or gas or whatever, right? But once it enters the downtown area, it has two bars that raise up from the roof of the bus and touch upon these cables that are suspended from the air all over downtown and are now powered by electric, so as to eliminate emissions.
How long did
there
it
was
take to get that started?
What they called a light rail in Denver.
Yeah.
That's basically the same idea. You have
Seattle
a
has
train,
light rail as
but it runs basically like bumper cars.
The Seattle light rail up until...
How long did it take to get those projects from start to finish?
I don't know. It was there when I got there in 96.
Was it more than 18 months?
Probably. Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, probably.
So on
I'm sure.
Ricky's time scale, you're not going to do this in everywhere in America in the next 18 months.
Well, and it's irrelevant anyway, because we're talking about most of the
I knew it was irrelevant when I brought it up.
Yeah, most.
That's why I brought it up.
Well, if we're going to talk about irrelevancies, then what we should have is a system of bumper cars, except the antennas should go all the way to space.
I was sitting...
And if they go all the way to space, then we can just harvest the space radiation.
Look, brother, I was sitting here listening quite peacefully to the Richie Rich and Peakless Mountaineer show. And you guys said something, and I was like, oh, hey, I got a bumper cars and, electric buses or whatever. And so in order to get a word in edgewise, I had to sort of interrupt you.
No, it's a fine idea if you think that that's what's going to happen. The question is it going to happen within Ricky's time frame?
No, it's not.
And it's not. No. So, again, that's another safe bet.
Well, not necessarily.
Okay.
So, seriously, you can have a system where gas, as far as you and I go, is $30 a barrel. Completely unusable. But they do subsidies for all of the things that they've decided are essential.
Understood. But there are more non-essential workers that will throw a fit, vote otherwise, protest, storm the Capitol, whatever.
Well, it's not like they count the votes.
I got it, but they'll be counting the bullet shells, right? At some point, it gets to that.
I think we proved in 2020 that there is pretty much no amount of stomping on people's rights that will get them to do anything.
Okay. So so they're going to have to subsidize people then. Whoever's working.
Oh, it's almost like people will call for a universal basic income with a central bank digital currency. I'm sure they won't do that.
Even if they do that, fine, right? Because no one's working. Gas prices is irrelevant. The only people who are pumping it are essential workers. The price goes down for them anyway. All right.
There won't be people pumping gas because the cars will just drive themselves to the gas station and automatically get filled up through some new automated process that doesn't yet exist.
Probably in 5 to 10 years, not in 18 months.
Or some I'm sorry, I just had a whole other thought surrounding this. I was watching sports ball, right? This past
Eagles
weekend.
and the Panthers.
No, I don't remember what it was, but maybe it was the Thursday night game. And you guys remember the whole Domino's story about them filling potholes?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Domino's Pizza ran a commercial during, I believe it was Thursday Night Football.
On Amazon Prime.
Yes, where they are now going to be plowing otherwise unplowed streets during the winter for people who are snowed in. You want to talk about the roads? Give us a call, 603-283-6160. More Free Talk Live is on the way.
A congressman recently revealed that legislation totaling 2,900 pages and involving more than $1 trillion was available to members of Congress for less than 48 hours to study and consider. That's over 60 pages of legislation per hour. Do you think anyone read the entire bill? I'm Jim Babka with DownsizeDC.org. Consider a proposal buried in a 3,200-page, $388 billion bill, which would have empowered committee chairmen or their agents to examine Americans' tax returns. When this horrible provision came to light, no one claimed to know how it got into the bill. One congressman questioned said, "I didn't write it, I didn't approve it, I wasn't even consulted." If your attorney represented you this way, he might be disbarred. But this is how Congress represents you every day. That's why DownsizeDC.org has created the Read the Bills Act. You can force Congress to read their bills before they pass them at DownsizeDC.org.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks with the Week in Review, and the week ended with a big win for former President Donald Trump at the U.S. Supreme Court. The justices declined to hear a case brought by Department of Justice Special Prosecutor Jack Smith, who wanted permission to fast-track questions that Trump attorneys have raised over whether their client is immune from prosecution on charges over his efforts to subvert the outcome of the 2020 election. Reporter Jody Schneider is with Bloomberg.
The court, without comment and without a public dissent, said they are not going to make a decision soon. This will actually hurt the prosecution's efforts. It doesn't tell us that they will ultimately say he's not immune. They just say they're not going to decide in a speedy fashion.
And that's a problem for the prosecution because it means the case is highly unlikely to get underway in Washington in early March, nor perhaps even before Election Day next November. On Tuesday, there was a bombshell decision by the Supreme Court in Colorado. It ruled that Donald Trump is ineligible to try and get his old job back, thanks to a clause in the 14th Amendment of the Constitution that says office holders who have led an insurrection are disqualified from further service. Sebastian Gorka, a former White House assistant to Trump, accused the Democrat-appointed justices who sit on the Colorado court of political skullduggery.
We know what this is all about. They know that Biden can't win, and they just want to make it impossible for the American people to freely choose their next chief executive.
The president of the Czech Republic declared 2 days of mourning after a 24-year-old student at Charles University opened fire at the Faculty of Arts building, killing 14 people and injuring more than 20 others. The gunman also died and is believed to have murdered his father earlier in the day. The United Nations finally passed a resolution on the crisis in Gaza, but it focused on the need for more humanitarian aid for the territory and stopped short of demanding a ceasefire. The US government forced multiple delays over the draft resolution's wording. FSN's Will Denzelo with more from our bureau at UN headquarters in New York.
13 of the 15-member body voted in favour of the draft resolution. The US and Russia abstained, but crucially didn't use their power of the veto. Moscow accused Washington of watering the resolution down, but failed in its attempts to reintroduce language calling for the suspension of hostilities in Gaza. The text does call for urgent steps to be taken to allow safe and unhindered humanitarian access into Gaza.
Britain's government has delayed plans to more than double the salary requirement for citizens bringing foreign relatives to the country. The announcement came amid criticism that families could be separated by the policy, which campaigners say disproportionately impacts people on lower incomes. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
Yes, it is Free Talk Live, the Saturday night edition. The telephone number in the studio is 603-283-6160. 603-283-6160. In the studio, it's myself, the captain.
Bakeless Mountaineer.
And Richie Rich.
We've been talking about, crappy birthday to the Federal Reserve, which is neither federal and doesn't really have any reserves. 110 years ago, they put this thing into place, and it removed the U.S. dollar off of the gold standard. Not necessarily completely in 1913, but eventually. I think when was the
33, 32?
When was the
actual gold standard? The rest of it was
70s. That would be Nixon.
Nixon, thank you.
71,
yes.
I think.
When it finally, all the way, because there were still, silver certificate,
confiscation.
and things of that.
I think it was 33 was when ordinary gold was, number one, made illegal.
Right.
And number two, no longer something that people could get for dollars.
Right.
But countries could still get gold for dollars.
Up until the 70s.
Up until,
okay.
I think it was 71.
So the Fed's unchecked power fabricates money with impunity, bestowing upon an insidious tool for control over markets, individuals, and governments alike. Fractional reserve banking, another offspring of the Fed system, permits banks to lend out money multiples larger than what they hold in their actual reserves. So to the lay people out there and the people who have never delved into economics, you might think that when you go to the bank and you want to borrow $10,000 to buy a used car, that they have $10,000 in the safe at that bank. And then they check your credit and they check your job and, they do make a few calls, send some emails, whatever it is. And they go, oh, yeah, your credit score looks fine. Here's $10,000. You might think that they pull that money out of that safe and then credit it to your account. That's not what happens. The fact is that they do make all those calls and emails or whatever, and then they just literally manufacture $10,000 into your account out of thin air with the press of a button. That's all that happens.
The most amazing thing is that sometimes they go out of business, even though they have this power.
This alchemy of finance amplifies the initial injection of new, a.k.a. counterfeit money, creating a house of cards where the ratio of actual assets to debt becomes increasingly precarious. This fractional reserve system thrives on the illusion of wealth creation while etching a reality of perpetual debt, enslaving future generations. So the creature is 110 years old. Crappy birthday, Federal Reserve. I wish an enormous amount of bad things upon you. I hope that the next phone number you get is one digit away from an all-night taxi service, among other things that I'd rather not say on the radio.
And all that being said, I agree with you, Captain. I don't think that's going to happen by 2026.
So I'm going to take a controversial stance.
Oh.
And among libertarians.
Not a pro-traversial?
Yeah. And say that at the moment, the Federal Reserve is our friend.
Ooh. Go on.
Yeah, that's right. Those are the daggers you should be staring at me.
Where am I? Have I gone through a dimensional portal? Are you really Peakless Mountaineer?
I know. It's a wild claim. But hear me out.
Oh, God.
Okay.
All right.
So right now...
That's a pretty bold boast.
Okay. So here's the basic idea. I think that it is better to have two very powerful evil people claiming power over your life that then fight each other than have one evil, powerful entity that claims rule over your life unopposed.
Oh, okay.
And if I'm right, then it's a better thing to have the Federal Reserve fighting the European Central Bank over who gets to be the great lord over the world's currency.
So is the presumption then that if the Federal Reserve didn't exist, the European Central Bank would take over the United States?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, without a doubt.
How so?
Well, through the World Economic Forum plan.
Okay,
they've pretty much detailed out exactly how they're going to become the bank of the world, and the Federal Reserve has said, excuse me, that is currently our job, and we are not giving it up.
I'm doing that thing that statists who haven't studied economics or looked at the outputs of governments do. they immediately jump to like,
who would build the roads?
And so I'm doing something similar to that when you say the European
Central Bank.
Jeez, thank you. European
ECB.
Central Bank would take over the United States, and like I'm like, how? Like to me, it's like overnight, right? It's like instant days.
Yeah, pretty much.
But no, it would take some period of time for that to actually occur. First, the Federal Reserve would need to dissolve or otherwise go away in some way, shape, or form, and then things would have to be put into place and like start moving to see something else adopted that would allow the European central banks to have, the majority of the currency distributed here in the U.S.
What would our currency be denominated in? Euros?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
No. So
you can't get an entire generation of Americans to go on the metric system. And overnight, they're going to be like, "Oh yeah, this just cost 50 euros."
Sure, they can. All they need to do is get
kind of yeah.
All they need to do is get.
So euros are at about the same level as dollars. So yeah.
All right. Wait, no, that's the wrong guy.
You muted me.
Right. That's the wrong guy. All they would need to do. I'm going to unmute you again now. All they would need to do is get some young female singer to do a cover of Bonnie Tyler's "I Need a Hero." But change the words to "I need a euro."
That's a sandwich.
No, euro, as in
and that was
euro.
worth muting your co-hosts to tell. Okay.
Some jokes are worth it.
I don't know if you know this, but you do have a habit of talking over people.
What? No. If that were the case, there would be a podcast that was famous for that.
You've got a full country of like red-blooded Americans who won't even touch a peso.
Dude, they all watch Monday Night Football because of the broad who sings that tune, right?
I don't care who sings the tune. What I'm saying is like they're gonna introduce the euro overnight, and the dude's gonna be like okay with it.
Well, it's a 1-for-1 replacement, right?
Is it?
Well, I mean that's what they would tell you.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty much.
I'm just thinking from the perspective of the propagandist trying to implement the change.
Yeah, and I'm thinking about
if you
the
have
hillbilly.
$10,000 in your bank, you'll just have 10,000 euros, and so big deal.
And I'm thinking about the hillbilly selling moonshine down at the creek.
Okay. Well, let's run this possibility. Okay, let's say Ricky from the Commonwealth is right, and this happens within 18 months, or let's call it just as close to overnight as possible. Okay, all of a sudden, all of the infidelities of the Federal Reserve are laid bare for the world stage, and all of the countries say, you know what? You can't keep your books. We're not going to trade for dollars anymore. So all of the imports must be done in some other currency. They will no longer allow you to buy anything from overseas for dollars. Okay. So what do you think would happen?
All the rednecks would be like, good, buy American.
Okay, great.
Made in America.
Okay.
Where's my MAGA hat?
And they can go ahead and starve.
They won't starve.
No, they literally can't get a MAGA hat. Those are made in China.
Well, that's great.
They literally can't get a MAGA hat anymore.
But they could trade some moonshine for one.
Right. So,
or for dollars that still are in cash that's still in circulation. They're not going to give it up.
So then the European Central Bank steps in and says, you know what? We will give you dollars on the dollar. For all of your contracts that were denominated in dollars, we will allow them to be denominated in euros instead. We will honor everything.
Because Billy Joe has a contract for dollars with his local moonshiner.
And sure, you're right. Some people would resist the change.
Yeah.
And they would suffer tremendously.
Everyone calling themselves a conservative in America would resist the change of going to a euro.
I don't think it's
not
Billy
if
Joe.
the American government.
Jim Bob. Okay, whatever.
Bob,
I couldn't think of a redneck name quick enough.
If the American government endorses it. If, Biden or whoever says, you know what, we really do need to do this to save the country, it is the patriotic move to do.
They're not going to listen to the Joe Biden. They stormed the Capitol when they thought he was going to be president.
So some of them will, some of them won't.
All right.
The ones that don't will not be able to buy anything from anywhere with dollars. They will be able to purchase from each other for however long that lasts.
I mean, you're also talking. You're pitching this, but you're also like within a community that's voluntarily moving off the dollar, trading in cryptocurrency and goldbacks on a very small level on principle alone. And I'm saying that these people who are anti-Democrat, anti-Biden, anti-Europeans, right, will do the same with the dollar. until they no longer have physical dollars at their grasp.
I think that it will be a very short period of time before the suffering economically is enough for them to make some change or another. They might in fact start using gold.
Yeah, are we suffering here by using gold backs in crypto?
I'm not.
All right.
In fact, using gold backs in crypto has helped to enrich my life in ways I never thought possible until I moved here.
Well, and using crypto in particular has certainly not stood in the way of any kind of international trade.
Okay. So
whereas if all of the countries say we will no longer allow dollars to be traded for the goods of this country,
the only place that would affect would be your importers trying to get foreign goods.
That's everything. We don't have a manufacturing base in this country.
Well, you're saying we have zero exports? The United States doesn't export anything
America's
to
primary export is financial nonsense.
Okay.
Like, seriously, finances is our biggest export.
The United States is largely service industry. That's the main, if you look at the chart of GDP.
Sure.
That's the largest chunk is service industry. And that means what? Waiters, waitresses, it means call centers, it means customer service, customer support, tech support, that kind of a thing.
Go on.
I mean, that's it. That's my
okay.
point.
So when foreigners come to get services,
goods.
When foreigners come to get services, if you're saying it's a service industry, tourism qualifies for that. They have to convert their euros into dollars. You'll have that flowing back and forth. That will then travel to the exporters, right? They'll get their euros from the foreigners who trade it for dollars.
Yeah.
They'll buy the imported goods.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I haven't traveled overseas recently, but doesn't Visa, MasterCard take care of that for you already? So if I have a Visa in my pocket and I jump on a plane.
You can pay a fee for it.
And I jump on a plane and I go to London or something, right? And I just show up at a pub and I order a pint and I sit down with some locals, we drink. And then I go to pay with the Visa in my wallet that was issued to me in the U.S. that I just use in the U.S. regularly, and I pay there. Don't they do all that conversion for me?
They charge you for it. There's a conversion fee associated with it. That's not the economical way to do it. The economical way to do it is to show up, find your local conversion bank, buy pounds or euros or whatever, spend as much of it as you can because it's going to be worthless when you come back to the United States, or you stop off at the bank, trade it back in.
Yeah.
You got to do that when you go to Canada. Drive up to Canada, you got to find some place that trades for Canadian dollars because not every place.
I don't know that that's true. Now
I did it when I went to Niagara Falls. We had to get Canadian money.
What year?
2018.
Okay, that's recent enough.
Yeah.
I'm just saying because I spent, even in Seattle, people would come back and forth from Canada all the time. You could do a day trip. You can not charter. There's boats that you just get on. And as long as you got a passport, you can go to Canada and come back in the same day.
And the people that were doing it all the time probably just maintained both currencies. Or they traded it out, or they just paid the fee on Visa, MasterCard, or they didn't spend that much while they were there.
I wonder what the fee is.
I don't know.
If it's unreasonable or if it's reasonable.
It's definitely unreasonable because they're going to take the cut for providing the service.
Well, I mean, on one hand, they're providing the service, so okay. If it saves me the hassle of having to jump through the hoops that you've described, which is go to exchange, like a literal exchange.
Well, it's
not a
right outside the
whatever.
airport, man. Typically, we're in the airport.
Well, in this particular case, you're on a boat, so I don't know. You know what I mean?
Or at the port, then.
But if it saves you from having to wait in line and having to deal with some bureaucratic hoops to jump through, if it's a reasonable fee, I might just pay it for the convenience. You know what I mean?
Going to Niagara Falls in Canada, it was a kiosk. It's like, trade your American dollars here. And then you did.
Huh.
And that was it. You're like, here's $20, and they give you 20 whatever value in Canadian. And then you go get some Canadian food and go on a Canadian tour or whatever.
Let's give Peakless Mountaineers something to do. We've got Skeeter calling. Skeeter, you're on Free Talk Live.
Hey, it's your boy, the evolutionary capitalist, Young Skeet. Hey,
the second most proficient evolutionary capitalist.
No, number one.
Number two.
I don't see a tattoo yet. And
you have a tattoo?
Wait.
Do you have a tattoo? Do you have evolutionary capitalist?
Hold on. You can't just skip over that.
What?
You have a tattoo of evolutionary capitalist?
No, I'm disciples. The leader doesn't have to get tats.
Oh.
But to show
that's why I don't have the tattoo, because I'm the number one.
It's a pretty solid argument.
You don't even know economics.
Also, if I remember my Fight Club correctly, the leader does have to get the permanent mark. He just has to give it to himself.
His name was Robert Paulson.
His name was Robert Paulson.
I'm the only one contributing
His name was
to
Robert Paulson.
I'm the only one contributing to the original theories. I don't hear anything original coming from that guy.
And why does Meatloaf never survive a movie? Honest question.
He did survive Pick of Destiny, at least assumably, because when young JB ran away from home, you assume that the family remained intact in Kickapoo.
Boring. Hey, what do libertarians know about economics anyways? You guys keep bragging. You guys don't know one lick of economics, of real economics.
Yep. We spend absolutely no time studying economics.
Yep.
None at all.
Because all you guys do is base your behavioral theory on non-aggression, which has nothing to do with economics.
If you want academic credentials, I have a degree in economics. Does that help?
What was that?
I said if you want academic credentials, I have a degree in economics.
Skeeter, one more time. Go ahead, Richie.
Yeah.
I said if you want academic credentials, I have a degree in economics.
Oh, why are you so ignorant then?
I'm not.
Because he has a degree in economics. Boom!
So for instance,
take that, academia.
Then if you have a degree in economics, you'll agree with this, right?
No.
So I
not.
criticize libertarian theory a lot based upon its whole basis is in a property ethic, and its whole property ethic is built on a fallacy, and that fallacy is the sunk cost fallacy. I've heard you mention that before. You agree? Because
I agree that we have mentioned the sunk cost fallacy before.
Oh my God.
I don't know what you mean by that. You'd have to tell me what the premise is and why it violates the sunk cost.
Ignorant about economics.
No, it's because you used a bunch of terminologies that you didn't define. You smashed them together. They don't make sense.
Yeah, you made a claim, but you didn't tell us what the example was.
Oh my God.
What does it mean that the entire libertarian philosophy is built on the sunk cost fallacy?
Well, first you agree that libertarian theory is solely just a property ethic, right?
Fundamentally, yes, it's based on property rights.
Property, right?
Yeah, I will grant that premise.
And that theory, that property theory, is solely based on who did what in the past. Mm-hmm. And a real market does not care about what was done in the past about that property, whether it's homesteading, where it's rightful transfer, which should not exist in a market. All it cares about is who utilizes that property more efficiently.
No. Real property is all about stealing things from people.
No, I reject. Okay,
thank you, Skeet. I see the light.
Pause there, Skeeter, because I reject that. Peakless might make that claim, but now you're talking about
the point. It's just like a couple more sentences, and then you can interject a little part. For God's sakes, you didn't even listen to you're not listening to the whole point. There's probably
you're already wrong.
Thing that I might cover, right?
But you're already wrong.
You're theoretically you're going to base your next point on the premises that you've put forward,
which is already
wrong.
It's just a few more points, because if you're wrong, you're interrupting me. If you're wrong about your rejection, you're interrupting me.
Then I object.
And
let me rebut.
All right. Let's let Skeeter be wrong for a few more sentences. Go ahead, Skeeter.
Now I got to take notes to cycle back to it.
You've got a pretty good memory. It's fine.
That's true.
All right, go ahead, Skeeter.
So it's all based upon so the market does not care about who owned what in the past. It's just like an investment. You don't care what you paid for it, right? That's gambling.
You can't say right and then not expect a response, because I reject it.
Yeah, we disagree.
I'm just repeating what I said. Can I go a little further? Okay, so the market doesn't care about who did what in the past about what property. All it cares about is transferring it, and it'll do so with aggression or without, depending upon the actions of the current owner, right? And that's the rational thing.
See, you said right again.
So
can't let him go on if he's asking the question.
It's all about rationality, right?
No.
It's all about rationality. And it's all about and rationality is based upon some type of profit ethic.
No.
And I claim it's evolutionary profit. Go ahead.
No. We disagree with every point, including your most recent one, that property is based on.
Start with the base one.
Okay, let's start with that the market does not care who the rightful owner of a thing is.
The market cares.
No,
so in order for there to be trade, there has to be an exchange of rightful property for rightful property. Otherwise, you have something that is not a trade. even if it does masquerade as a trade.
So now work backwards.
You can have trade with aggression. So I can take something from
No, you literally can't. They are mutually exclusive.
I said a transfer of property. I didn't say.
There could be a transfer of property through violence and
yes.
coercion.
Well, I mean, kind of, but not exactly.
Okay.
So the thing is, you may have control over a thing without it being your rightful property.
Sure. But if I steal your cup, I've got your cup.
That's true. You don't have the right to my cup, though. And it wasn't
but
a
I
trade.
do have the cup.
And you didn't actually get the property. You just gained control over it. So there's a difference between property and control.
All right.
If you can't take it back, that's his property. Like, I think Rich agrees with me here. I don't know why he stopped here with his analysis, and he doesn't go further into why someone would protect property for someone else, or a group of people protect something for someone else. It has
they
to
get
do
paid
with
for it.
evolutionary profit, right? And I didn't really explain evolution. I know the other TFAT guys know, but not Richie Rich. My whole
Evolutionary capitalist brethren.
No, I didn't know, but I didn't explain. Well, anyways, it's not really.
You didn't
important,
explain. You had me at I didn't explain.
Let's use profit. Let's just use accounting profit as a proxy, right? It's a close proxy, so let's just use monetary accounting profit, right?
For what? For what purpose?
It's not really it, but it's a good proxy.
For what purpose?
So why would you? So if we're on a deserted island, Crusoe economics, right?
Oh God!
And you have your property. You have your like.
I have 17 coconuts, and you have a fish.
The fringe case, that'll never happen.
Well, hold on. Let's stop there. Now, let's say two people are on a desert island. Now, those two people, since we're just cutting out all extraneous factors, those two people have two options of how they're going to deal with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they can either respect each other's property and negotiate, or they can have a force-based relationship where one or both tries to dominate the other. And
there's a third option.
The third option is evolutionary capitalism, Peakless.
No, there's a mix of those two.
Okay, that's just a variation on force. All mixtures are a variation on force.
Black and white?
It's not black and
Yes,
white.
it is actually black and white. It either is forced in part, or it is not forced in any part.
It's like the state obfuscating their force by having several layers of bureaucracy in between. Right? If you don't pay your taxes, no one's going to come and kidnap you. Well, not at first. At first, they're going to send you some letters. And then they're going to have somebody visit you.
Forget that.
This is why we stop at every premise, because we got like the last one, and now he's going to take credit for like the 3 or 4 that came before that.
Right.
And as good as my memory is, I don't remember what it was.
Right.
Let me introduce another economic concept it's called opportunity cost, right?
I still don't know before you introduce opportunity cost. I still don't know how the libertarian property ethic is a sunk cost fallacy. I think that's where we were going.
It relies on looking in the past upon who's the rightful owner of a property.
That's not a sunk cost.
It really is not.
Yeah,
that's not what sunk cost means.
If I were like, let's say the current Democratic government, which actually is somewhat libertarian, which looks at kind of who rightful.
They're more evolutionary capitalist than libertarian.
You know, sometimes I think I get high, but Skeeter is high.
I can't get a thought out. I can't listen while I'm talking either.
Oh well, thankfully the segment is over.
Just wait for evolution to catch up to your brain.
603-283-6160. Please give us a call if you're more interesting than Skeeter.
And the phones are lit up.
More Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is coming up.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing. To be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. Physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks with the Week in Review, and the week ended with a big win for former President Donald Trump at the U.S. Supreme Court. The justices declined to hear a case brought by Department of Justice Special Prosecutor Jack Smith, who wanted permission to fast-track questions that Trump attorneys have raised over whether their client is immune from prosecution on charges over his efforts to subvert the outcome of the 2020 election. Reporter Jody Schneider is with Bloomberg.
The court, without comment and without a public dissent, said they are not going to make a decision soon. This will actually hurt the prosecution's efforts. It doesn't tell us that they will ultimately say he's not immune. They just say they're not going to decide in a speedy fashion.
And that's a problem for the prosecution because it means the case is highly unlikely to get underway in Washington in early March, nor perhaps even before Election Day next November. On Tuesday, there was a bombshell decision by the Supreme Court in Colorado. It ruled that Donald Trump is ineligible to try and get his old job back, thanks to a clause in the 14th Amendment of the Constitution that says office holders who have led an insurrection are disqualified from further service. Sebastian Gorka, a former White House assistant to Trump, accused the Democrat-appointed justices who sit on the Colorado court of political skullduggery.
We know what this is all about. They know that Biden can't win, and they just want to make it impossible for the American people to freely choose their next chief executive.
The president of the Czech Republic declared 2 days of mourning after a 24-year-old student at Charles University opened fire at the Faculty of Arts building, killing 14 people and injuring more than 20 others. The gunman also died and is believed to have murdered his father earlier in the day. The United Nations finally passed a resolution on the crisis in Gaza, but it focused on the need for more humanitarian aid for the territory and stopped short of demanding a ceasefire. The US government forced multiple delays over the draft resolution's wording. FSN's Will Denzelo with more from our bureau at UN headquarters in New York.
13 of the 15-member body voted in favour of the draft resolution. The US and Russia abstained, but crucially didn't use their power of the veto. Moscow accused Washington of watering the resolution down, but failed in its attempts to reintroduce language calling for the suspension of hostilities in Gaza. The text does call for urgent steps to be taken to allow safe and unhindered humanitarian access into Gaza.
Britain's government has delayed plans to more than double the salary requirement for citizens bringing foreign relatives to the country. The announcement came amid criticism that families could be separated by the policy, which campaigners say disproportionately impacts people on lower incomes. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. Former New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani filed for bankruptcy protection on Thursday. The move came 1 week after he was ordered to pay 2 election workers in the U.S. state of Georgia $148 million for defaming them on social media. One of the 2 women is Shay Moss.
The flame that Giuliani lit with those lies and passed to so many others to keep that flame blazing changed every aspect of our lives. Our homes, our family, our work, our sense of safety, our mental health. As we move forward, our greatest wish is that no one, no election worker or voter or school board member or anyone else ever experiences anything like what we went through. You all matter, and you are all important.
Bankruptcy will not protect Giuliani from the financial judgment because damages for defamation are not eligible to be eliminated during the bankruptcy process. A man in the American state of Oklahoma was exonerated after spending 48 years in jail for a murder that he did not commit. Glyn Simmons is now 71. His lawyers are pushing for compensation, as FSN's North America correspondent Caroline Malone reports.
The longest-serving inmate to have been found innocent of a crime, Glyn Simmons served 48 years for murder. At the beginning of his sentence, he was on death row until a Supreme Court ruling on capital punishment. This week, a judge made the ruling after finding prosecutors did not turn over key evidence, such as a police report about other suspects.
Stories we'll cover in the week ahead. The Turkish Parliament's Foreign Affairs Commission will consider Sweden's bid to join NATO. Wall Street is hoping for a so-called Santa rally to close out the year. And the US state of Maine may disqualify Donald Trump from remaining on the presidential ballot. And that is the Week in Review from Feature Story News. Simon Marks reporting.
NASA announced the discovery of a mile-wide asteroid this week that could potentially trigger a global level of extinction, forcing upscale fashion retailer Nordstrom out of business. Researchers confirm that the celestial object is traveling at speeds exceeding 29,000 miles per hour, threatening to slam into the planet with more than 1 million megatons of force, enough to jeopardize operations at all 117 full-line Nordstrom locations.
Unless we can find some way to divert or intercept the asteroid, all 7 billion people on Earth, including all 62,500 Nordstrom employees, may die. Even if the asteroid breaks into smaller pieces upon entry into the atmosphere, a death toll as low as several hundred million could still slow foot traffic in stores and reduce online orders from Nordstrom's subsidiary Hotlook.
Humanity is surprised it still hasn't figured out an alternative to letting power-hungry assholes decide everything. And a magical office worker is able to turn everything he touches into more work for his colleagues.
This is the Onion News Network.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live. Free Talk Live.
Yes, it is Free Talk Live. The show where the only people I really censor are because the FCC demands it, or if you get out of line.
Peakless. Hey, he said.
Oh, I did it again. Oh, man. What was that, Peakless? Go ahead.
I can go home.
No. Don't do that. Don't do that. We need you on the show.
To be fair, he censored me in a failed attempt to censor you.
Yeah, and I did it again, except I did mean to. Yeah. Anyway.
See?
The telephone number, if you'd like to join us tonight, is 603-283-6160. We need you on the show because, man, I can't handle
So,
Skeeter.
Richie, tell us again where you should shoot police.
Oh, listen to the June episode several years ago.
I can't handle Skeeter, and so I'll put him on if y'all are here, right? And even then, not all the time, right? Because, like, man, that guy is overwhelming, man. I can't imagine, like, I wonder what he does for his day job.
Does he have a day job?
I assume he does, but who knows?
I mean, he's in California.
Maybe
Just because you libertarians sunk the cost of mixing your labor with nature doesn't mean you get to keep the effect of it.
Maybe he's collecting the crazy money. You know?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, he's also
is in
admitted to being on the
California,
spectrum.
so I assume that he is on the government dole.
He is in California on the spectrum.
He could be a Fed.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Calling into like, hey, it's your boy, Skeeter. Trying to be a
antagonize us?
mosquito. You know what I mean? Yeah, because that's what mosquitoes do, right?
Okay.
They bug you, right?
And you swat him.
He strikes me as one of those people that does the work of the feds for free.
Interesting.
They are technically called in spy jargon a useful idiot.
Now that you mention it, have you watched the movie Richard Jewell?
Mm-mm.
Okay, watch that movie. It's a true story, but I
have not seen this.
Okay, well, watch it then.
Or that I'm aware of, anyway.
It's the guy. It's a real guy. His name was Richard Jewell.
Mm.
He was like working security at some venue or concert, and he found an explosive and called it in, and it exploded.
Oh.
And he was a useful idiot because, like, the entire time he was proclaiming his innocence and cooperating with the police, whose whole job was to incriminate him and pin this explosion on him,
right.
until he was like finally vindicated. And that the useful idiot reminds me because like the whole time he's like, I work security like I'm one of you guys, like I'm cooperating any way I can, and his lawyer's like, shut up, stop talking. He's like, no, we're doing this or we're doing that. Like,
no,
this
they're on our side.
Right, yeah. And I kind of feel, sometimes
the police would never enforce an unconstitutional law.
I sometimes in conversations with my boss, I feel like he's like Richard Jewell, right? Because he's always on the side of the people who's against him.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, why would you be on their side?
Right.
They're actively working against you, and he feels some like moral or ethical obligation to support his enemies.
Speaking of people working against you, are you guys aware that President Joe Biden has signed the country's largest ever military budget into law?
I saw the headline.
You mean he outdid Trump?
He did.
Unsurprising.
This from RT.com. Biden signs off on record U.S. military budget. The mammoth defense bill gives Ukraine a tiny percentage of aid promised by the White House. There's a whole separate bill, by the way.
What did they
for
sneak
Ukraine.
in there?
There's a whole separate bill for Ukraine that has nothing to do with this.
I got it. But usually they sneak in pork
let's
right into these defense bills.
Well, I mean,
isn't the whole bill pork? Like,
you have to ask yourself this question. Do you think that we are getting any portion of the amount of military power for the United States in proportion to them spending way more than like the next two countries combined?
Are we? What's the? I don't.
So,
understand
like,
the
for
question.
example,
like, are we getting the
like,
benefit of the United States military?
Yeah, I mean, like, do you think that they're getting the military, like, any percentage of the military power out of that budget for what they spend?
Yes,
it's like 1%,
okay.
man.
Yes, they're getting a percentage. It's nowhere near the value.
Right, like 99% of it is all pork. They build things that don't work to build things that don't work because it rewards their donors.
This is all just machines of murder is really all that it is.
Understood, but typically, your special interest will. This is the Ron Paul thing that I'm always griping about.
Yeah.
Right. Ron Paul will see this big military budget spending bill.
Yeah.
And he'll put something in there for his little state and his little county in Texas.
Yeah.
And then vote no, knowing that it will pass. Right. So
that is somehow worse than voting no, knowing that it will pass and not putting that in there?
On principle, yes, it's worse.
How?
Because on principle, if you're going to vote no, you ought not put something else in there.
Well, I mean, on principle, a man shouldn't be a politician. So,
also a good case against Mr. Paul that falls on deaf ears amongst other community members.
Well, yeah, and again, the old joke was, well, what's the difference between a libertarian and an anarchist? Six months,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
But that's not true.
6 months in New Hampshire.
Maybe, but there are still many, many libertarians who are not anarchists. They are minarchists here in New Hampshire.
Right.
So,
So you have this giant defense bill, and then because they know it's going to pass, they shove in more stuff in there.
Yeah,
and
it's political tricks.
That seems like a lateral move to me.
I'm just curious about it. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'll say it's all bad, but I want to know what's in there.
The $886.3 billion bill, $886.3 billion.
They didn't even crack $1 trillion. They're really holding themselves back.
Gives American troops a pay raise, but includes only a fraction of the aid requested by Ukraine. Biden signed the 2024 NDAA on Friday after it passed Congress with bipartisan support. So any of you who are, pointing fingers at Democrats or you're pointing fingers at Republicans, they both signed off on this thing.
Yeah, speaking of anniversaries of terrible, terrible things, crappy birthday to the NDAA.
Yeah. At $886.3 billion, the bill allocates 3% more money to the Pentagon than last year, which came in at a then record 858. So apparently every year they crack a new record for,
of course,
some reason.
So he literally outdid himself.
He did.
Again, even if it was the same value that you got last year, it's going to go up because of the inflationary pressures on the dollar.
Biden said that he signed off on the bill despite certain quote-unquote concerns. I'm doing air quotes for those of you who are just listening and not watching over at watch.freetalklive.com.
Nice.
Despite certain concerns with its contents, perhaps something like politicians inserting things and then voting against it even though they know it's going to pass.
Well,
hey. Ron Paul's not in office anymore. Who's going to vote against this?
Maybe Joe Biden's concerns were that he's a demented old man, and by demented I mean has dementia and can't even read the damn thing.
Okay, so
hey, even if he could read, no one's going to read this.
Forgive me.
We have to pass it, find out what's
You're
in
forgiven.
it.
Forgive me. My knowledge of this type of thing only goes back to like elementary school, right? I paid zero attention in high school and college. Does the president not have the power of the line item veto? Is that gone? Or is that still a thing?
I think it's still a thing.
Still a thing.
Yeah.
So anything that he had concerns, and now I'm doing the air quotes.
Yes.
Right. He could have just vetoed out of there.
Who did him better? Rich, hear me. Air quotes.
Richie, because he didn't say quote unquote and do the air quotes and tell people he was doing the air quotes.
Okay. All right. Very well.
2 out of 3. Right, so he could veto
right
these
number.
anything.
Okay, yeah.
He could veto it out. Okay, so he
It
has
does say
concerns
that he
and then
signed
didn't care
it.
enough.
He signed it despite these concerns.
Well, but he can veto out the concerns.
I have concerns, but what's that?
He condemned.
That's more plausible. That's more realistic.
He condemned a section prohibiting the use of U.S. government money to transfer detainees from Guantanamo Bay to prisons in the U.S. or other countries. And criticized
That's a big difference.
And criticized provisions that require the White House and the Pentagon to hand over, quote, reports and plans to Congress for oversight, unquote.
So he condemned it but didn't veto it out. Got it. Okay.
I will give you very strong words about these two things, but I'm going to sign it anyway.
Yeah. Okay. As long as we know where the buck stops.
The bill also, and this is the part that makes me sick, reauthorizes Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act until April. That's FISA, for those of you playing the acronym game, Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. The act allows U.S. intelligence agencies to conduct warrantless wiretapping of foreign communications, despite the FBI admitting to using it to illegally surveil American citizens more than 280,000 times in 2020 and 2021.
If it was already illegal and not authorized by this, then why aren't they being held accountable regardless of this?
Who would hold them accountable?
It's government.
The CIA.
Here, have some.
I'm sure the CIA is in fact holding them accountable. Okay. I guarantee you that if anyone of any real power starts defying the Central Intelligence Agency, they will, one way or another, no longer have their position.
Okay, so...
And that has been true since John F. Kennedy.
I get the who's held accountable. I was kind of joking. However, if you were one of these people illegally spied upon in violation of the law, including this one, that would give you standing to make some sort of claim in their court system. But I have heard nothing of anyone even making that claim. And having it be
except
thrown
that
out.
the federal court system would have to choose to see it.
Yeah, I
and
got
they
it.
tend not to.
Okay. So, but do we know of cases that have been filed and rejected by the courts?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I can look them up, but like you can Google it for yourself.
I could.
FISA, yeah.
Well, it's not a
There's
FISA
a tremendous number of suits over the FISA spying.
It wouldn't be a FISA spying because FISA doesn't authorize the FBI to spy domestically. It would be a violation of whatever, the constitutional Fourth Amendment protection against the FBI spying domestically.
Several Democrats and Republicans opposed the reauthorization, with Senator Ron Wyden, a Democrat, complaining earlier this month that it was inserted into the bill without a vote or any debate.
See? Pork.
The NDAA includes a $300 million allotment in military aid for Ukraine over the next year, which the Pentagon is to spend on procuring arms and ammunition for Kiev from private contractors. This program, called the Ukraine Security Assistance Initiative.
And there's your cronyism.
Hold on, so he inserted the National Defense Authorization Act into the spending bill?
It doesn't say who. It just says the bill reauthorizes the Section 7. The bill also reauthorizes Section 702 of the FISA Act. The act allows U.S. intelligence agencies to conduct warrantless wiretapping of foreign communications.
Right.
Despite the FBI admitting to using it to illegally surveil American citizens.
It was the next part.
More than 280,000 times.
It was the Ukraine authorization for private companies.
Sorry. The Pentagon is to spend on blah, blah, blah. This program, called the Ukraine Security Assistance Initiative, is one of the mechanisms by which Biden has been bankrolling Ukraine's military. It has been used to buy $3 billion worth of weapons to date.
But to private contractors.
Of course.
So there's your cronyism. $300 million going to their buddies in the military-industrial complex.
Their preferred, right, yeah, exactly.
To provide arms and munitions.
Yes. Yeah, Burisma was right.
However, $300 million falls dramatically short of the $61 billion in direct military aid that Biden has promised to the Ukraine under a separate $105 billion spending bill. This bill remains stalled in Congress, with Republicans vowing to block its passage. Yada, 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 yada. You get the idea.
So $1 billion too much, $300 million, no problem.
Look, there's something like 800 known United States military bases around the world.
Okay.
That's just the ones we know about. And as you pointed out, Richie Rich, this is double the next two countries' total military spending combined. So the United States spends...
Actually, I was the one that pointed
I'm
that
sorry.
out.
I agreed with him, though.
I see that we sound the same to you, too. Caller.
Right.
Sorry, go ahead.
Maybe I was just giving Richie Rich credit for an unknown reason.
Where it was not due.
Yeah.
I see.
I'll take it. It's called extra credit.
Maybe there's too much beard in this room. I don't know. That's not true. There can never be enough beard in this room. So anyway, I made a mistake.
We'd do a separate podcast for that at some point.
My point is that more than double the next two countries' military budget combined. Not to mention record-breaking year over year, apparently. When is the murder going to stop?
Well, funny.
And also, how is this not an empire? How is this not an empire?
Well, so this is one of the wacky things that's going on, though, is that, like...
Hold on. Let me finish my thought. If you, the listener, and folks out there in listener land, if you go into the military thinking you're doing something noble, you're not. You are becoming a stormtrooper. You are aligning yourself with the empire, literally. The United States of America is the largest empire planet Earth has ever known, by almost any measure.
So you were asking, when is this going to stop? It might, actually. So the wacky thing about having
bet 5 dash on that?
Well, I mean, something's got to give. So the thing about having the federal funds rate at 5.25% is that the U.S. actually has to finance its new debt at that. And they've already passed the point where paying just the interest on their existing debt is more than the entire federal budget for the military.
They don't care.
Yeah, I'm with Captain on this one. They don't care. But I will say this, to your initial question, when will it stop? To go back to like hour one, like first segment about the nuclear proliferation, right? This is why you don't do it if you're one of the other countries. Because if the United States is spending this much on the military, you are at risk if you're not able to defend yourself somehow against the empire expanding into your territory.
Yeah.
Because the only country that has used them is the United States, and we've still got them.
the people of the United States of America need to grow some balls real quick. You cannot bomb your way to peace. You cannot murder your way to cooperation in society. These are just oxymorons. They're jumbo shrimp, military intelligence, right? These are things that are opposed to each other. So the longer this goes on, the more folks are going to see you, the people, as accessories, cooperators, complicit in what the United States is doing.
They already did. That was part of 9/11.
Right.
They didn't target the military bases.
Right. And that, is likely to continue because all the military does, the output of the United States as a government, as the system that governs, right? The only output that can be measured is bodies. It's certainly not doing anything economically for us, right? Okay. We're in the hole, right? The debt is huge, right? Unborn children are in debt the moment they're born onto, quote, U.S. soil, unquote.
He did the air quotes again.
I did. Just in case you were wondering, Peakless.
But he also said, quote, unquote.
Okay.
So this time you're doing the superfluous explanation.
And a superfluous job you did.
Thank
you. This whole murdering empire, it just needs to stop, right? The United States of America, if you think it was based on noble intent, if you think the Bill of Rights was a noble intention, if you think the Declaration of Independence was a noble intention, if you think the Constitution was a noble intention, and you think that the things that they wrote in those pieces of paper were noble, things like liberty, freedom, right, prosperity, right, the ability to make all your own choices for yourself, etc., and so on. None of those things is true right now. None of those pieces of paper have any merit whatsoever. They're just words on paper, and that's how your government treats them. If that were not the case, things would be a lot different. So as a person who worked in tech, the only objective way to evaluate a system is to see what the output is, right? If you're Henry Ford and you build an assembly line, right? Why are you building the assembly line? You're building the assembly line so that you can make more cars faster, right? Instead of making...
And even if you tell people that you're actually assembling plushies, and you find out that it's cars coming out of that factory, you might start thinking to yourself, that's not a plushie factory.
Right. Well, let's take a step back as well. The United States military has done all this damage all over the world.
Continues to do. And overnight, it ceases. Just somehow someone gets in charge, or by luck of happenstance or miracle intervention, the United States ceases all this, recalls all the troops, closes all the bases. Is the rest of the world, all the terrorists that have been created by bombing their families between now and then, do they just go okay, we forgive you, you left? Or is there still a revenge motive, and then there's still defense to be needed against whatever offense they're now going to employ?
Depends on how long you wait.
Yeah,
if it happens overnight, how long is a terrorist going to wait?
You're doing this thing that Skeeter tried to do, and that many libertarians do. You're throwing out a hypothetical situation that has zero chance of occurring. Yeah. Right? There is going to be no miracle thing that makes the United States suddenly one day overnight stop all of this.
I got it, but we're calling for it to cease. Right? We're saying the proliferation of the American empire needs to stop.
So your argument is basically that the American empire has the tiger by the tail at this point.
It might. I'm suggesting that that's a possibility. I'm not saying it's a good thing.
My point is that the people who live within what is commonly referred to as the United States of America need to grow the F up. They need to grow some balls, and they need to start standing up for each other.
And do what?
That's up to the individual.
Okay. And I
think that's a really good question.
If they're successful,
what would that look like to you? What concrete actions that human beings took would look like that in your eyes?
Well, I'm already here, right? So
300 million Americans moved to New Hampshire.
Well, it'd be a lot easier if 300 million Americans just went, hey, you know what? No, okay. I will not comply.
All right.
Right? I mean, there's all sorts of ideas that are out there
and that
that
grinds
could
the gears
work.
of the state.
There's all sorts of ideas out there that could work if a large enough percentage of people were to adopt them.
Understood.
And but the reason people don't adopt them is because they ain't got no balls.
The end goal of your suggestion is the cease of the American empire, and I'm granting you that end goal.
Yes.
Right? What happens then with all the terrorists that were created around the world because of the empire?
I think that's going to take us more time to discuss than we have.
Okay.
But I will say that one concrete action that people could take today is learn other currencies. Because first you have to learn how the other currencies work before you can use them. And then you can use them, and then you can take your productive power away from the deadly empire.
How would you subvert the system? How would you go about gaining respect in the international community in the absence of government? 603-283-6160. Give us a call. More Free Talk Live coming up.
When commercials come on, don't push the button. Instead, listen. Even if you don't sell things for a living, you're still selling in the various conversations and transactions that make up your busy day. With money and attention so scarce now, effective communication skills have never been more important, especially if you're a job seeker. So take a lesson from Madison Avenue. Often the fewer words, the more effective the message. Like Jiffy Lube, where you never need an appointment, or the Office Max ad that says, you supply the ambition, we supply everything else. How about online ticket broker StubHub.com, the way in when it's sold out, or CyberCupidMatch.com's seductive, go ahead, it's okay to look. How cleverly and succinctly can you distill your message? For more tips, hit survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks with the Week in Review, and the week ended with a big win for former President Donald Trump at the U.S. Supreme Court. The justices declined to hear a case brought by Department of Justice Special Prosecutor Jack Smith, who wanted permission to fast-track questions that Trump attorneys have raised over whether their client is immune from prosecution on charges over his efforts to subvert the outcome of the 2020 election. Reporter Jody Schneider is with Bloomberg.
The court, without comment and without a public dissent, said they are not going to make a decision soon. This will actually hurt the prosecution's efforts. It doesn't tell us that they will ultimately say he's not immune. They just say they're not going to decide in a speedy fashion.
And that's a problem for the prosecution because it means the case is highly unlikely to get underway in Washington in early March, nor perhaps even before Election Day next November. On Tuesday, there was a bombshell decision by the Supreme Court in Colorado. It ruled that Donald Trump is ineligible to try and get his old job back, thanks to a clause in the 14th Amendment of the Constitution that says office holders who have led an insurrection are disqualified from further service. Sebastian Gorka, a former White House assistant to Trump, accused the Democrat-appointed justices who sit on the Colorado court of political skullduggery.
We know what this is all about. They know that Biden can't win, and they just want to make it impossible for the American people to freely choose their next chief executive.
The president of the Czech Republic declared 2 days of mourning after a 24-year-old student at Charles University opened fire at the Faculty of Arts building, killing 14 people and injuring more than 20 others. The gunman also died and is believed to have murdered his father earlier in the day. The United Nations finally passed a resolution on the crisis in Gaza, but it focused on the need for more humanitarian aid for the territory and stopped short of demanding a ceasefire. The US government forced multiple delays over the draft resolution's wording. FSN's Will Denzelo with more from our bureau at UN headquarters in New York.
13 of the 15-member body voted in favour of the draft resolution. The US and Russia abstained, but crucially didn't use their power of the veto. Moscow accused Washington of watering the resolution down, but failed in its attempts to reintroduce language calling for the suspension of hostilities in Gaza. The The text does call for urgent steps to be taken to allow safe and unhindered humanitarian access into Gaza.
Britain's government has delayed plans to more than double the salary requirement for citizens bringing foreign relatives to the country. The announcement came amid criticism that families could be separated by the policy, which campaigners say disproportionately impacts people on lower incomes. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
Backwards really is Sprat.
Got it.
Yes. The things, useless information that I have stuck in my head for unknown reasons.
Was that a quote?
It was air quotes.
I believe you were quoting yourself.
Or was it?
If you quote yourself, do you have to use air quotes? Or are you just saying it again?
The telephone number here at Free Talk Live is, quote, 603-283-6160, unquote. If you'd like to join us.
He requoted on the unquote.
He put quotes inside of his own quotes.
And I unquoted both of them.
If you're going to quote yourself, all you have to do is say,
we were
before.
doing so well.
I believe I have reached my quota of this bit.
But So this idea of like, okay, let's imagine, if you will, an America that works the way people like think and feel that it does. Where it doesn't actually like run around picking fights and having a giant empire military industrial complex, but instead like actually uses the military where it's needed. So
defense of the borders.
Right.
No Mexicans allowed.
So pulls back from all of these
at the border.
All of these aggressive wars that it's currently engaged in. And yeah, you have that problem of, okay, but you just upset a lot of people. And by upset, I mean they're literally willing to blow up their own bodies to hurt you.
Yes. They're still out there.
Right. But at that point, you would have all of this military power that you're not wasting and literally intentionally wasting all across the globe, that you could then focus on, okay, if someone does a terrorist attack, you can go, okay, we're going to just push you into oblivion.
Okay.
Like, this guy, we're going to find out who he knows, that you're all dead. And only those people.
I mean...
not their neighbors.
Okay. I guess that's the difficulty, because it seems that's sort of how you get into this mess. Right? Like, they blew up the Twin Towers on 9/11, and we invaded Iraq. Right?
Well,
we went.
That's like stabbing myself in the.
That one,
hang on,
then.
that's like stabbing myself in the foot with a shovel for your mortgage. Like the two things are unrelated.
Either way.
So the Twin Towers could not have been blown up without the American army, without the American military being complicit in the action.
I have to do a thing before we go on. Hold that thought. I have to thank Jessica, who is a platinum level amplifier. That means she gives...
and presumably female, which is an anomaly.
Is it $20 for platinum? 25? I don't remember.
25 sounds right.
Which means Jessica enjoys this show, the hosts, the co-hosts, the callers, the perspective of freedom, peace, liberty, and prosperity that we bring to the airwaves. And she believes it is a proper use of her Liberty Dollar to help amplify us, which means advertise, market, promote, and support. So thank you, Jessica, for your contribution. You can become an amplifier over at amps.freetalklive.com. It's a Patreon type setup. There's different levels. We only ask for $5, so Jessica gives more because she believes this show is worth more than $5 to her. It brings that much value to her. It's a voluntary donation. So visit amps.freetalklive.com. You do get some little benefits and that kind of a thing, but that's not why you should amplify. You should amplify because you believe in the message of liberty. Thank you again, Jessica, for your contribution. We appreciate you. Go ahead.
Where was I?
You were in,
right,
in your
9/11.
seat.
I was suggesting that with 9/11, right, at least the rhetoric from the state was these individuals did a bad thing. We're going to go get the guys who did it, much like you just suggested would be like the outcome if we brought all the troops home.
Right. And if they actually got the guys who did that, as opposed to what they're doing, then that would be a much better circumstance.
Well, like at some point,
but in their mind, they are.
And my point, no, they're absolutely not.
They are
They
absolutely
know
not.
full well that these are not the people responsible for the attacks on 9/11. They know full well that is the case.
Is it though? I mean, like, let's just imagine, if you will, from their perspective, right? Their families have been getting bombed by military forces. Creating their position that the USA is evil or whatever it is, right?
Do it with Israel and Hamas. That's recent.
And so in their mind, it occurs to me, like, what other things might they have done to get the attention of not just the U.S., like, in proper channels, right? Like, did they go to their government? Did they go to, like, the embassy? Did they try, what other things were tried? And then did they arrive at the conclusion that we talked about just in the previous segment here, that, like, the ignorance of the populace of the United States makes them complicit in these acts of murder? And so if that's the case, then, in their mind, they're probably thinking, well, we have no recourse. We have no other way to let planet Earth know that what is being done to us is wrong, morally, ethically, politically, etc., and so on, than to strike back.
That's usually what you get when you give someone no recourse.
Right.
Even like the Art of War, the Sun Tzu quote, right, is give your enemy like a golden bridge to retreat upon, so that there's no recourse. Like, they're fine. You go away and we're good. Right. But if you back them into a corner, you kill their family, they have no recourse on the international stage because the American empire is so large. What are you going to do?
Right. And you throw in some religion in there.
Sure.
Right. That makes it honorable for them to sort of carry themselves or whatever.
You don't even have to throw in religion. There are people that will self-emulate on the steps of the courthouse because they got a bad ruling in a divorce decree.
Right.
Well, and I think this is why you have the idea of, look, once you put on that uniform, you have decided you are with this group. You, the individual, have given up that individual status to be part of this group.
I believe that, yes.
And I think you got to draw the line somewhere. And look, we can either undo the last 2,000 years of philosophy and go back to being groups that fight each other as groups, that do not judge each other as individuals.
Right.
Or we can maintain this idea that it matters what the individual does, regardless of the circumstances of their birth.
Yeah, when I first started becoming introduced to philosophy and principles, it amazed me at how universal they were. You throw in ethics in there, right, and you can get to the appropriate conclusions without religion. And
should be able to.
And that's the thing that enthused me the most. Why is that important? Well, because if you can arrive at people doing good for people without the use of religion, then that means it's compatible with all religions.
So there's kind of a hang up there, though.
What is it?
So the idea of judging the individual is a religious idea. So fundamentally, the idea that it's the individual that matters and not the family, and certainly not the tribe, that emerged out of Christianity specifically. That was the first situation where it was no longer a matter of what your family did that you should be focusing on. And it wasn't that your family would get you in or out of another afterlife. It was the individual choices.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying.
Right.
Okay.
And see, that's the thing.
I was like, wait a minute, every Christian I've ever talked to is all about family this, family that, family. I get what you're saying, though. Yeah.
Right, and that afterlife thing is the proxy for everything. Like, since we're talking about eternity here, you can say this is the most important thing. So and since it's the most important thing, it applies to everything. And that's the condensation of the idea is on everything. We should judge people not as part of a family, not as part of a tribe, but as an individual. And that was an idea that emerged from religions, specific religions.
I'm okay with that as long as philosophy
doesn't scale up.
Ethics and principle can use it successfully for peaceful interaction.
It doesn't scale up.
What?
Judging people as individuals?
It doesn't scale up. Yes, it does. Well, okay, so let's go back to the terrorist example. The United States military bombed a country, killed a family, created a terrorist, and that dude's only claim is going to be against the guy flying the plane that dropped the bomb.
No.
That's the individual.
Okay, that is an individual.
That's the individual.
No, that is an individual.
It's the individual that killed his family.
Would you let me finish the sentence, please?
Maybe.
That is an individual that he has a claim against. He also has a claim against the entirety, person by person, individual by individual, of that chain of command. So the person that ordered him to drop that bomb and the person that ordered him to drop that bomb, each individual in that chain who had a choice, he has a claim against.
The
individual that paid the tax to pay for the bomb?
No.
Where do you draw the line?
Because he had no choice. He was being threatened.
The irony.
Some people pay on by willingly.
The irony of...
Okay, yeah, no, that's an important difference. If the guy paying the tax did so willingly knowing that this was going to happen, then yeah, he has a claim against him too.
Everyone pays their taxes knowing this is going to happen.
I don't know
Not
that
all of
everybody
us do
knows.
it willingly.
Yeah, a lot of people are just in the fog of statism. The irony, as I attempted to say 5 or 6 times, of Peakless asking you to let him finish is not lost on me.
Yeah, I know.
I just wanted to make sure that we do that.
But that's the reason why I'm okay with the uniform designation, right? If you put on the uniform, you're complicit. You're guaranteed complicit. You go after those people. Same team.
I mean, there's a part of me that wants to forgive. There's a part of me that wants to forgive people who are ignorant of the facts because they're uneducated as to what is.
Well, and part of my overall position with the uniform thing as well is it's prohibitively difficult for a Serbian farmer, right, to find the guy in the chain of command and exert any sort of justice on an individual level. He's not going to find the bomber. He's not going to find the captain. He's not going to find. He's not even going to get close to the president.
I'm the captain.
The lieutenant. Then he's not going to get close. Right. His recourse is just vengeance. Right. Yeah. And retribution.
Well, okay. So then, we should look at the history of uniforms. Right. It's my understanding, and I don't know if it's right or wrong, that uniforms were first used as a way to identify who is on your team, not the way to identify the enemy.
Well, so Peakless brought up a statement that I made several years ago that I'll stand by, but I won't reiterate it.
Okay.
What spurred on that initial claim was the fact that those individuals were lining up in such a manner that it reminded me of the Redcoats in the British Army.
Okay.
Right. They formed a straight line. They were the enemy. Right. They had the uniform of the enemy.
Yep.
And the Americans shot them. Right. They went, oh, look, they're standing in a line. Pink. And shots were fired. And it seemed to me that that's an inefficient way to mount a defense or an offense is to stand in a straight line. And I thought we figured that out.
Well, no, I think you're absolutely right. I think that they know that, and they know that everyone else knows that. So what they're forming is not a defense. It is a proof that they don't need to defend themselves.
Okay. But either way, they put on the uniform, and that's who you go after. Right? It doesn't matter who fired. If a shot comes from that direction, you fire back in that direction.
Right. But so let's say a person puts on a uniform.
Yep.
And they have a kid.
Yep.
Now, you don't have a claim against that kid.
You're right.
And that's because you're judging on the basis of the individual.
Well, I'm judging on the individual's choice to put on the uniform of the collective.
Right. Right. And so here, this brings me back to my question is okay, hold on. You made the claim that you can come to these conclusions philosophically. And I'm not saying you're wrong, but I'd like you to answer this. How do you know that the individual is the basis of measurement?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know the answer to that.
And I wish I could give you a non-religious answer to that.
I come to that conclusion because
I know it's correct.
Well,
but I don't know why.
No, I come to that conclusion because I know that individuals are unique, save for some identical twins floating around out there, or triplets or whatever. But even then, they become unique, right? So, they might they might have the same DNA or whatever, but maybe one has a lame eye or something like, or develops
even if it's just
one.
a separate experience that landed on them differently.
Well, and even two twins will develop differently epigenetically,
right?
And you can even tell the different genes because of which ones are turned on and which ones are turned off.
Like if we just look at nature is full of individualism, right? No two trees are the same. Right? No two blades of grass are identical, right? It literally is.
But I can treat them the same, and it goes well.
Well, you can mow them all with the same lawnmower, sure.
Right.
They're lined up in a row.
But that might make
wearing the same green uniform.
Wow. No air quotes on that one. Huh? All right. So that's where I get it from. I take a look around at nature, and I go, okay, nature is full of uniqueness, even within a small niche of like the same plant or the same animal or whatever, right?
Nature's also very predatory.
It is, yes. And
humans try to stifle it amongst our own species.
And territorial.
Yeah.
Right? That is true. So, but I arrive at that conclusion because I look at nature and I go, if nature is creating, and you can call nature whatever it is you want at this point. Some people will call it God or whatever, right? I call it nature. If nature is creating individual human beings, why is it doing that? The answer that in my mind is because it has to.
Capitalism.
It has to create individuals in order for the species to make progress, right? Nature doesn't stand still very often.
It has
as far as
uniqueness to explore.
Yes, as far as there is no end goal with nature. Nature never goes, well, I guess that's all the grass I'm going to invent. There's no reason for any new grass to grow whatsoever. No, because nature is this ever-changing environment that everything must adapt to, and therefore the best way for large quantities of grass or humans to grow is for each of them to be unique. And so if we look at things like, group actions, right? In any crisis situation, almost every time, the best action is for individuals to act individually instead of acting collectively. When individuals start acting
crisis,
when individuals start acting collectively at scale is when a bunch of stuff usually goes wrong. Now, a whole bunch of individuals might agree that, hey, this action is the appropriate action to take. If there's a earthquake or a flood or something like that, a bunch of people are going to self-motivate to get themselves to go and help other individuals, right? But
seems
they're
like collective action.
But they're not going around and saying, hey, everybody, you're going to come and do this. They're acting individually of their own decision, right? They're not being forced to by a state or something like that.
Well, they're not being forced to, but I think they inherently know that working together is better than working individually. And
teamwork has to happen, of course.
Well, that's what I'm saying. They collectivize. They voluntarily collectivize for the betterment of all.
But they specialize.
Sometimes.
Right?
Yeah.
Within that, right? Okay, you're going to be the guy that does this. You're going to be the guy that does that. This guy's going to oversee the whole thing, right? Take instructions from him, and he's got the plan, or here's the blueprints, or whatever it is.
If you're trying to fix a pipe, you go, "Who here's the plumber?"
Right.
Yeah.
Or who here has plumbing experience?
Something like that.
Right?
Sure. Yeah. You're in charge of this activity.
Yeah.
Tell us what to do.
So, does that answer your question? I mean, I have to conclude.
It definitely makes me think.
I have to conclude that nature makes me believe that the individual is where it's at, is where we should be focused, because we're all individuals. I'm unique to you. You're unique to him. He's unique to me. Right? We're not even the same person that we were 5 minutes ago. Right? Individually. Right?
Well, and I suppose it comes down to this. We can have more peace with each other if we treat each other as not tribes and families, but individuals. I mean, so you were pointing out, well, I want to give some forgiveness to even the person in a uniform, but who didn't realize what they were doing.
Right.
And I would say
take the uniform off first.
Right.
Well, yes.
Right. Yeah. I would say to you that
once they realize.
Yeah.
Right. Once they realize what they're doing, they have a choice. Now, they can either keep doing what they're doing, in which case they do not deserve your forgiveness, or they can try to redeem themselves. And the first step is to stop what you're doing.
Yeah. The cultural indoctrination, the cultural hogwash that many people grow up in, right? is so deep. Like, it starts from before they're born, right? A kid is born to a family that's all military all the time, right?
It's going to go into the military.
My
most
daddy
likely.
my grandfather was and they grow up, they turn 18, I'm going into the military, right?
Seems to be the case.
And so they go because they think they're doing the right thing. They have been culturally indoctrinated to believe that they're doing a noble good. Right? The same thing happens with like police and that kind of thing. People grow up and they believe, even if they weren't in that family, like they grew up thinking that, oh, by doing this, I'm doing good. I want to do something to help society. I want to do something to better people, right? They're wrong in this case, but like those are the people that like I have compassion for.
If they take off the uniform.
Because they go into these things with what I like to call noble intent.
And I realize where there's a practicality of, okay, there's plenty of people who don't realize what they're doing, but they're wearing a uniform and they're still doing it.
Yeah.
And
so
while they're doing it, even if they don't know what they're doing, they're wearing the uniform and you have to treat them as if they do.
So let's go back to the original example that we started. Like the United States pulls out, there's a bunch of terrorists. Does the United States pull out and offer some recompense, some restitutions, somehow paid for by whomever to apologize and make good and say, well, now that we've realized our mistakes, we're not going to do that, and here's something to make it up so that you don't feel the need to terrorize us further?
That's not a bad idea. I don't know how likely that is, right?
Well,
I know we're talking hypotheticals
and
here.
in order to do it, they would have to then terrorize their own citizens to pay for it.
I think it's, for example, if New Hampshire secedes from the U.S., that would be a really good idea for us to say, hey, world, we are no longer doing any of the things that the U.S. military was doing, and we realize that we played a part in that, and we want to work with you to make up our part in that. I think that would be a really smart idea.
All right.
And I want to go back to the complicit thing, right? I was a statist, right? That is to say that I was like, well, government might suck, but, it's the best thing going, right? That was my opinion, right? I was a knee-jerk constitutionalist. So whenever, something came up that was sort of like, oh, well, this seems like a situation where some people are going to have to figure it out. I was like, well, what does the magic paper say? Right?
Yep.
What does the Constitution say? Is it in the Constitution? Great, then do it. It's not? Oh, then don't do it, or whatever it is, right?
Not a bad starting point.
Let the Constitution, like that was sort of, because I grew up in like biblical families, right? Where they're always pointing at the magic book.
Well, and particularly it sounds like Protestant families, because that's the big Protestant thing is like, wait a second, now that we can actually read this because it's not in Latin, which no one speaks,
right?
Well, what does the book say?
So my point is that I did not, I don't know what the right term is. I did not awaken. I didn't come out of the fog of statism until I was 37 years old.
All right.
So, like, if you're going to use, and I never wore a uniform, so, like, okay, that's fine. But, like, if other people are going to use citizenship as complicity, right, then they've given no one a chance to wake up.
Well, I don't think the terrorist whose family died in a U.S. bombing cares about your ability to wake up.
I'm sure, but as an anarchist,
well, hold on. I have a question about when you were a statist. Mm-hmm. Did you willingly pay the tax?
Define willingly.
I mean, did you pay the tax because there would be penalties if you didn't, or did you pay the tax because you wanted to give your money to the U.S. federal government?
No, I filled out the forms because I wanted to get a return. Right? Like there was always the promise of I was poor, dude, right? So like, I would go and I'd work a job. They took the taxes, right? Yeah. And I was like, oh, I better maximize the amount of money in my pocket. And so,
well, then you didn't even pay the taxes. They took them.
Right.
So there's enough people on the internet clamoring for the taxation of the wealthy, where it's not a principled matter of they're taxing me. It's a matter of like they're taxing the wrong people. Taxes are still justified.
Taxes are never justified.
They will justify if you tax the right people. They are complicit.
Yeah, those people are complicit. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's true.
Because they believe that stealing from peaceful people is a good idea. You just need to pick the right peaceful people to steal from.
And there's a lot of those people out there that aren't libertarians or us.
So to go back to attempting to answer your question, when I was a statist, why did I, file my taxes or whatever? It was because it was the thing that everybody did, right? Like, that's just how it was. I'm sorry, everybody. We are out of time. Thank you, Richie Rich. Thank you, Peakless Mountaineer. Thank you to all our listeners and all of our callers. We'll be back. It's been Free Talk Live. Thanks and peace.
Free Talk Live.
You're privileged to drive the road. You must follow the law.
No, I don't have to.
And you're gonna double park and you're gonna make a left-hand turn in front of a cop?
Can I respond to you here, Barbara?
Go right ahead.
I'm not going to run a red light in front of a cop because he has a gun and is willing to hurt me, but I've run plenty of...
Wrong. He's not gonna hurt you. He's gonna give you a ticket.
Oh, but if I decide not to pull over, what will he do?
Well, you're not obeying the law.
Barbara, I don't obey arbitrary words written down by strangers. I obey natural law, Barbara. That means